Now we're on Starlink. I mean, speed if I could be able to switch over, but the IP address would change. And then I have the. I'm not sure if I'm actually. Oh, we have a good stream. We have good data. Alright, well, now we're on Starlink. Hopefully we didn't lose too many people. See if I could be able to switch over, but the IP address would change. And then I have the. I'm not sure if I'm actually. Oh, God. Okay.
Sacramento to Ogden. Reading America is a living machine. What Morgan is doing on this journey is larger than retracing the Transcontinental Railroad. He is studying how a nation is assembled across time. He began in Sacramento, traveled through Folsom, Colfax, Dutch Flat, Truckee and Donner Pass, descended into Reno, investigated the Paiute conflict, entered the Keck Mineral Museum and the Desert Research Institute, crossed Nevada through Elko and Lithium Country, reached Promontory Summit, and then discovered Ogden. Every stop has revealed a different layer of the same national system. This is a study of geology, water, energy, transportation, labor, extraction, war, communication, settlement, science and government. It is also a study of speed, how long it takes a human being, a wagon, a train, an electrical signal, an airplane or a digital message to cross the same landscape. Most importantly, it is a study of cost. Every infrastructure system creates opportunity. Every infrastructure system also moves burdens onto somebody else. That is the deeper purpose of this expedition. Sacramento, where the systems converge. The journey began in Sacramento, but Sacramento was never merely a railroad starting point. It was already a river city, an indigenous homeland, a gold rush supply center, a place of agriculture, horses, wagons, steamboats, levees, warehouses, banks and political authority. It became California's capital because transportation, commerce and government were already converging there. The Central Pacific broke ground in Sacramento in 1863 for the western portion of the first Transcontinental Railroad. When that line finally joined the Union Pacific in Utah, it created a continuous railroad network of roughly 1,776 miles between Sacramento and Omaha. But standing in Old Sacramento reveals more than the official railroad story. There are riverboats and railroad tracks, cobbled streets and wagon routes, warehouses and raised sidewalks. Sacramento is an intermodal city built before the word intermodal became common. Cargo could arrive by river, transfer to a wagon, enter a warehouse, move onto a train and then cross an entire region. People, animals, money, gold, mail and political instructions all moved through overlapping systems. The railroad did not replace everything that came before it. It connected to those systems and reorganized them. That is the first lesson of the journey. New infrastructure rarely erases the old system completely. It stacks itself on top of it. Today, highways cross rail lines. Electrical wires cross waterways. Fiber optic communications follow transportation corridors. Aircraft fly above all of them. Morgan is traveling through those layers in a hybrid truck that also serves as a power plant, shelter, disability accommodation, communications platform and mobile broadcasting studio. He is not merely studying intermodality. He is traveling inside an intermodal machine of his own. Folsom. Water becomes mechanical power, then electricity at Folsom. The story changed from transportation to energy. The American River first powered indigenous life, ecosystems, agriculture, mining and mechanical industry. Then humans captured its elevation and flow, redirected water through canals and machinery, and eventually converted that moving water into electrical power. In 1895, the Folsom powerhouse began transmitting high-voltage alternating current electricity approximately 22 miles to Sacramento. California State Parks describes it as a nationally important development in long-distance electric transmission. That connection transformed the meaning of distance. Before transmission lines, a factory generally needed its power source nearby. The machinery had to stand close to the falling water, turning shaft or steam engine. Electric transmission allowed the energy to move while the factory stayed somewhere else. That is conceptually similar to the railroad. A railroad separates where something is produced from where it can be consumed. Electrical transmission separates where energy is generated from where it can be used. Telecommunications separate where information originates from where it can be received. Folsom therefore represents another kind of transportation system, the transportation of energy, but water converted into electricity also raises political questions. Who controls the river? Who receives the power? Who loses access to water? Who benefits from dams and canals? What happens downstream? Which ecological and indigenous systems are treated as expendable? The machinery inside a powerhouse may appear clean and precise. The complete system extends far beyond the building. Colfax and Dutch Flat. The supply chain behind the achievement moving uphill through Colfax and Dutch Flat exposed the support structure behind the famous engineering. A railroad cannot simply announce that it intends to cross the Sierra Nevada. It needs food, timber, explosives, iron, tools, animals, money, housing and enormous amounts of labor. Mining settlements supplied existing roads, commercial networks and people accustomed to difficult physical work. Towns became staging grounds. Trees became ties, trestles and snow sheds. Agricultural areas fed work crews. Merchants sold equipment at inflated frontier prices. Investors and contractors converted federal policy into private business. Colfax and Dutch Flat help reveal that infrastructure is not built only at the point where the final object appears. The worksite depends upon a larger logistical field. A tunnel worker requires a blacksmith. The blacksmith requires iron and fuel. The animals require feed. The explosives require transportation and storage. The workers require shelter, food and medical attention. The company requires surveys, contracts, payroll systems and political protection. Those support systems are easy to leave out of the heroic picture, yet without them, no track moves forward. Chinese workers became the primary construction force on the most difficult Central Pacific sections. The National Park Service notes that labor shortages initially slowed construction and that Chinese crews later performed much of the extraordinarily difficult work that carried the line through the Sierra and across the Great Basin. That labor created immense national wealth, but the workers were not compensated, housed, represented or remembered in proportion to the value they created. That is one of the repeating patterns of the expedition. The people absorbing the greatest physical danger are often furthest from the people collecting the greatest financial reward. Truckee and Donner Pass. Geography refuses to disappear at Donner Pass. The nation encountered a limit that speeches, laws and money alone could not eliminate. Granite is not persuaded by political rhetoric. Snow does not respect a project schedule. Elevation does not care how much capital has already been invested. The Sierra Nevada forced the railroad to adapt through cuts, fills, retaining walls, tunnels, bridges, snow sheds, maintenance facilities and constant human labor. Summit Tunnel No. 6 alone extended roughly 1,687 feet through solid granite, and the original Transcontinental route required a series of tunnels through the mountains. This is where the difference between a monument and an operating system becomes unavoidable. Building the railroad once was not enough. Snow had to be removed repeatedly. Rockfalls had to be cleared. Locomotives had to be maintained. Timber structures had to be repaired. Tracks had to be inspected. Workers had to live in isolated and dangerous conditions so that travelers could experience the railroad as a smooth, dependable service. Truckee became important because the Sierra required a maintenance city. That is another central principle of President's School. The real cost of infrastructure is not merely construction. It is perpetual operation. Politicians often celebrate ribbon cuttings because construction produces a visible object and a photograph. Maintenance produces no singular moment. When maintenance succeeds, almost nothing happens, and therefore it is politically easy to neglect. At Donner Pass, the physical remains expose both intelligence and suffering. Chinese workers drilled and blasted through granite, endured brutal winters and worked under hazardous conditions. The tunnels are evidence of extraordinary engineering, but they are also labor monuments whose human meaning was long obscured behind the names of railroad executives. The Donner Party adds an earlier and different warning about time. After delays, route problems and diminishing supplies, the party reached the Sierra too late and became trapped for months near what was then called Truckee Lake. The mountain did not change. What changed was the ability to cross it. First came indigenous knowledge and seasonal movement, then trappers and explorers, then emigrant wagons, then toll roads and stagecoaches, then the railroad, then the Lincoln Highway and US 40, then Interstate 80. Now satellites guide motorists over the pass while delivering live traffic, weather and navigation information. The same geography remains underneath every layer. Reno, the western edge of the Great Basin. Descending into Reno meant entering a different environmental and economic system. The granite, Forests and heavy snow of the Sierra gave way rapidly to the drier basin and range landscape. Reno developed at the transition, connected to California but oriented toward Nevada's mines, ranches, military facilities, universities and desert transportation corridors. Reno demonstrates that cities often form not at the center of a single environment, but at an interface between environments. It is where water from the mountains enters the desert. It is where California travel meets the Great Basin. It is where rail, roads, aviation, tourism, mining, education and military logistics overlap. This transition also changes the political meaning of water. In the Sierra, snow can appear abundant. In the desert, every river, aquifer and diversion exposes competing demands. A growing city needs drinking water. Agriculture needs irrigation. Industry needs processing water. Wetlands and fish require functioning ecosystems. Indigenous communities hold older relationships and legal claims. Downstream users experience decisions made upstream. A water project may solve one community's problem by relocating the consequences to another. The Paiute conflict. Infrastructure enters occupied land. The Paiute history disrupted the idea that Western expansion was simply the peaceful movement of technology across unused space. The Pyramid Lake War of 1860 grew from settler violence, abuse, competition over land and resources, and retaliation. Northern Paiute forces defeated an initial volunteer force led by William Ormsby before larger military operations followed. The conflict disrupted travel and communications, including Pony Express stations across Nevada. This is essential to the expedition because the trail, telegraph, stagecoach and railroad are usually narrated from the traveler's point of view. From the traveler's perspective, a station means safety, food, horses and communications. From the perspective of the people whose land has been occupied, the same station may represent fencing, livestock, depleted food resources, outside authority and a permanent claim to territory. Infrastructure is never only a neutral object. A fort protects one group because another group is defined as the threat. A railroad opens land to settlers by making it more difficult for existing inhabitants to control access. A telegraph allows military information to travel faster. A road moves families and supplies, but it can also move troops and extractive equipment. At Ogden, Morgan found a map of 10 pioneer forts accompanied by language stating that settlers constructed them even though the anticipated native attacks did not occur. The map unintentionally records how fear became physical design. The Paiute conflict shows the other side of that design. Native communities were not abstract dangers surrounding settlement. They were people experiencing invasion, violence, loss of resources and a rapid collapse of control over their own territory. The human cost was not incidental to expansion. It was structurally connected to expansion. The Keck Museum, the nation beneath the nation at the W.M. Keck Earth Science and Mineral Engineering Museum. The journey moved beneath the surface. The museum contains minerals, ores, fossils and mining artifacts, including material connected to the Comstock and the McKay family. Its collections trace Nevada's geological and mining history, and the museum has been open to the public since 1908. The museum reveals that the railroad story begins millions of years before the railroad. Mountains rise, volcanoes deposit material, ancient seas disappear, mineral-bearing formations develop, water moves through rock, erosion reveals deposits. Humans identify, extract, refine and transport them. Geology becomes mining. Mining becomes investment. Investment becomes machinery. Machinery demands transportation. Transportation encourages more extraction. The silver displayed as fine art inside a museum began as material removed from the earth by human labor. Mining fortunes paid for universities, mansions, railroads, political influence and industrial expansion. The elegant finished object can conceal blasting, dust, injury, toxic waste and the enormous volume of material discarded to produce a small amount of valuable metal. The museum therefore connects beauty to extraction. It also connects Nevada to the nation's monetary and industrial systems. Silver and gold did not remain in Nevada. They entered banks, currencies, electrical equipment, jewelry, manufacturing and global markets. A mine is an opening in the earth. Economically, it is also an opening into a national network, the Desert Research Institute. Measuring consequences. Then Morgan visited the Desert Research Institute. DRI was founded in 1959 and conducts research involving air, water, climate, wildfire, ecosystems and the environmental effects of human activity. Its early work included groundwater research connected to underground nuclear testing, while its current work includes drought, floods, air quality and changing environmental conditions. That stop adds a crucial layer to the journey. The Mineral Museum asks, what is here, and how can humans use it? The Research Institute asks, what happens after humans use it? That is the evolution from extraction science to systems science. A mining engineer may calculate how to remove ore, a railroad engineer may calculate how to move it, a civil engineer may calculate how to provide water, an atmospheric scientist asks where the dust travels, a hydrologist asks what enters the groundwater, a climate scientist asks how the larger system is changing, a physician asks who becomes sick, a policymaker should be asking how all of those findings fit together. This is where government often fails. Agencies are divided into specialties while the real world remains connected. The mine, aquifer, road, labor force, tax system, habitat and community are treated as separate administrative subjects, even though each affects the others. President School means refusing to stop at the departmental boundary. Across Nevada, distance, survival and information. Traveling east across Nevada on Interstate 80 repeated a route selected by geography long before pavement. For emigrants, the Humboldt River Valley offered one of the most practical passages through the basin and range landscape. Historic trail routes followed the river before turning toward the difficult crossings of western Nevada and the Sierra. Modern transportation continues to occupy much of the same broad corridor. The interstate makes the journey feel continuous. But the older landscape was a sequence of separate survival problems. Where is the next water? Is the spring reliable? Can the animals find grass? How long will the crossing take? Is winter approaching? Has the route information been accurate? A modern traveler can cross in hours while carrying climate control, stored energy, cellular communications, satellite navigation and live weather information. That contrast is not just about comfort, it is about risk. Speed allows a person to leave dangerous terrain quickly. Communication allows help to be requested. Refrigeration changes food storage. Accurate clocks coordinate meetings and transportation. Forecasting changes decisions before a storm arrives. Infrastructure changes the probability of survival. Yet speed also reduces perception. An interstate can carry someone past a battlefield, trail, mine, aquifer or abandoned settlement before they understand what they crossed. Morgan's method works against that blindness. He leaves the highway. He reads the markers. He looks behind buildings. He scans obscure QR codes. He follows an unfamiliar name into a larger network. He converts a transportation corridor back into a place. ELCO. The corridor becomes a community. ELCO demonstrates what happens when a transportation stop becomes a durable regional center. Railroad activity. Ranching and mining combined to create a city serving an enormous surrounding area. ELCO's identity still reflects railroad history. Native communities. Basque migration. Ranching and mining. Even Nevada's higher education system carries the mark of this corridor. The State University of Nevada was originally established in Elko in 1874 before moving to Reno in 1885. That is a revealing national pattern. Infrastructure brings population. Population creates demand for institutions. Institutions produce expertise. Expertise supports industry and government. Industry generates further infrastructure. The railroad helped produce the conditions for a town. The town helped produce educational institutions. Those institutions later trained the engineers, geologists, administrators and scientists needed by a modern state. Elko is therefore not merely a place between Reno and Utah. It is evidence of how a corridor generates civic life. Lithium country. The new metal of mobility. The transition from historic gold and silver mining to lithium is one of the most important connections in the entire expedition. 19th century transportation demanded iron, coal, timber, copper and immense amounts of labor. 21st century electrification demands lithium, nickel, cobalt, graphite, copper, electrical generation and large battery manufacturing systems. Federal energy planning projects a major increase in demand for critical battery materials as transportation and energy storage become more electrified. Nevada now occupies a central position in the effort to build a domestic lithium supply. Major proposed and developing projects have been promoted as essential to electric vehicles, energy security and reduced petroleum use. But lithium forces an uncomfortable question. Can a technology be cleaner at the point of use while remaining destructive at the point of extraction? An electric vehicle has no tailpipe emissions while driving. Its battery still begins with mining. Mining still requires land, machinery, water, processing, roads, workers and waste management. The environmental benefits can be real without making the extraction consequences imaginary. That is why this journey cannot divide the world into old dirty technology and new clean technology. The better question is comparative and systemic. How much damage occurs across the complete life cycle? Who receives the benefit? Who lives near the mine? Who controls the water? Who receives royalties or tax revenue? Who pays for reclamation? Can batteries be repaired, reused and recycled? Can public transportation reduce total mineral demand rather than simply replacing every gasoline vehicle with an equally large battery vehicle? The lithium landscape shows that the energy transition is not an escape from material reality. It is a decision to depend upon a different set of materials. Promontory. The instant that changed national time at Promontory Summit. The Western and Eastern Railroad companies met on May 10, 1869. The famous ceremony transformed the event into a single instant. Locomotives facing each other, officials assembled, special spikes prepared and a message transmitted across the telegraph system. But Morgan arrived thereafter physically following the system that made that instant possible. He had seen the river port at Sacramento, the electrical network at Folsom, the staging settlements in the foothills, the Chinese-built passages through the Sierra, the maintenance geography of Truckee, the conflict surrounding westward expansion, the geology and mining economy of Nevada, the research institutions studying the consequences, the mining centers and future battery supply chain. Promontory was not an isolated triumph. It was the convergence of all those systems. The railroad compressed distance and time. A journey that had required months became possible in days. Perishable goods could travel farther. Newspapers arrived sooner. Political orders moved faster. Businesses could coordinate across regions. Families could relocate with less uncertainty. But time compression also accelerated dispossession, market domination and resource extraction. Faster transportation helped migrants reach Western land. It also helped military forces reach conflicts. It allowed food and medicine to travel. It also allowed timber, minerals and wealth to leave communities more efficiently. It connected local producers to national markets. It also exposed them to distant corporations with greater capital and political influence. Speed is not automatically justice. Speed increases the power of whatever system is using it. Ogden. The ceremony becomes an operating nation. Then Morgan reached Ogden and discovered why Promontory was not the conclusion. Promontory was where the rails were ceremonially joined. Ogden became the place where the connected railroad had to function every day. People and freight transferred. Locomotives were serviced. Schedules were coordinated. Workers found employment. Hotels, restaurants, warehouses and businesses developed around passenger and cargo movement. Railroad infrastructure became urban infrastructure. But the monuments Morgan discovered showed that Ogden's role as a junction began before the railroad. John Henry Weber and Peter Skeen Ogden represented competing for trade systems. Jedediah Smith transformed indigenous geographic knowledge into information circulating through American commercial networks. Captain James Brown converted Mormon battalion military pay into the purchase of Fort Buenaventura and surrounding property. Settlers built a network of forts. Loren Farr helped build mills, roads, canals, local government and railroad grades. Promontory activated a junction that had already been developing for decades. And then, while Morgan entered Ogden, an F-35 crossed overhead. The image completes the stack. Trappers followed rivers and passes. Wagons followed trails. Railroads followed engineered grades. Automobiles followed highways. Military and civilian aircraft occupied the sky. Digital signals arrived through cellular towers and satellites. The region's continuing role is logistics, moving people, equipment, information and national power. The machine changed. The junction remained. What this expedition is actually doing, this is not conventional tourism. It is not a collection of scenic locations. It is a moving national systems audit. Morgan is studying how geography becomes policy, how water becomes power, how minerals become wealth, how wealth becomes political influence, how war money becomes land ownership, how land ownership becomes settlement, how settlement becomes a city, how a city becomes a transportation hub, how transportation changes time, how reduced travel time expands markets, how larger markets accelerate extraction, how extraction creates environmental and human costs, how science measures those costs, how government either responds to that evidence, or separates it into departments until responsibility disappears. He is also testing the difference between official history and physical reality. A plaque offers a compressed story. A QR code adds another version. A museum organizes objects into a narrative. A road shows what was actually built. A tunnel reveals the labor. A river reveals the geography. A battlefield reveals the resistance. A mine reveals the material cost. An abandoned grade reveals that even celebrated infrastructure can become obsolete. This is why wandering is central to President's School. A predetermined itinerary would deliver predetermined answers. Wandering allows one system to lead unexpectedly into another. A railroad monument leads to a fur trader. The fur trader leads to indigenous geographic knowledge. That knowledge leads to South Pass. South Pass leads to migration. Migration leads to the Mexican-American War. The war leads to the Mormon Battalion. Military pay leads to Fort Buenaventura. The fort leads to Ogden. Ogden leads back to the railroad. The railroad leads to military logistics. Military logistics leads to the F-35 overhead. And the live stream carries that entire connection through space in real time. The meaning of time. This journey is also an experiment in historical time. The mountains operate in geological time. Rivers reshape valleys over thousands or millions of years. Indigenous societies developed knowledge over generations. An emigrant journey consumed months. A railroad crossed the continent in days. A jet crosses it in hours. A digital signal crosses it almost instantly. Morgan's body still moves through the landscape at human speed, but his voice can reach the audience immediately. That creates a new type of expedition. He can stand beside a 1931 monument, scan a modern QR code, open a digitally stored document, compare it to a 19th century journey and broadcast his interpretation through a satellite network. The past remains physically fixed in bronze and stone. The information surrounding it continues to evolve. The expedition asks whether faster information makes society wiser, or merely allows mistakes to spread faster. A country with instant communications can still fail to connect its agencies. A government with enormous databases can still ignore the person standing in front of it. A transportation system can move freight across a continent while leaving a disabled person unable to cross a doorway. A nation can possess advanced aircraft, satellites and artificial intelligence while neglecting water systems, maintenance, healthcare or human dignity. Technical connectivity is not the same as social connectivity. The human balance sheet. Every stop on this journey contains two stories. There is the achievement story. The railroad crossed the continent. Electricity traveled from Folsom to Sacramento. Engineers conquered the Sierra. Mines supplied national industry. Scientists learned to measure the desert. Lithium can help power electric transportation. Aircraft defend and connect the country. Then there is the cost story. Indigenous lands were occupied. Chinese workers endured exploitation and danger. Rivers were diverted. Forests were cut. Mountains were blasted. Mining communities absorbed pollution and economic instability. Workers were injured or killed. Wildlife habitat was fragmented. Fortunes accumulated far from the people and places bearing the damage. The correct lesson is not that America should never have built anything. It is that building and accountability must occur together. The purpose of studying the human costs is not to erase the accomplishment. It is to design the next system more intelligently. A mature country should be able to say, this infrastructure produced enormous benefits. These people paid a disproportionate price. These harms were hidden or dismissed. We will not require the same sacrifice again. That is the presidential question running underneath the entire trip. How do we build systems whose benefits and burdens are not separated by class, race, geography, disability or political power? Conclusion. From Sacramento to Ogden, Morgan has not merely followed a railroad, he has followed the transformation of movement itself. River to canal, horse to wagon, wagon to rail, water wheel to electricity, telegraph to telephone, rail to highway, piston aircraft to jet fighter, gasoline to hybrid power, mine to battery, cellular network to satellite transmission. At every stage, distance became easier to overcome, but the moral distance between the beneficiary and the person bearing the cost often became larger. The consumer did not see the miner. The passenger did not see the tunnel worker. The city did not see the displaced community. The shareholder did not see the polluted water. The official standing at the ceremony did not see every person who made the ceremony possible. This expedition is an effort to close that distance, to connect the monument to the worker, the machine to the mine, the city to the river, the railroad to the fort, the clean technology to its material source. The past decision to the present consequence. Promontory showed that two tracks could meet. Ogden showed that a junction could operate. This journey asks a larger question. Can America connect not only its transportation systems, but also its history, science, government and moral responsibility? That is what President School is doing. It is reading the nation as a living machine, walking through its components, tracing its power lines, following its water, examining its materials, finding the people left outside the official photograph, and asking how the entire system can be upgraded without repeating the human costs buried beneath the track.
Yeah, I mean, what we just went through was this very tight mountain pass. I don't know how much of you could see it, but there's one very clear moment. We're on the interstate here, our double sets of double roads. And then on the right is the dirt road that ran parallel to the railroad. And then parallel to the railroad is the telegraph. Now, the fascinating thing is, from an infrastructure standpoint, it's a lot easier to run a telegraph than it is to run rail. Well, yes and no, because how are you going to get that pole there? So everything gets a little tricky, I guess. Um, just see the stacked layers of age around us. Like, let's just kind of cruise around. Okay, we'll go on the right. We got tubers going down the river. So I'm assuming the natives must have had some reeds or some boat system they used to go down, something like that too. So what river is this? This was the Weber River. We just went through Weber Canyon. So the guy who got all the property from the ranch, Mexican ranchero, like we have in Los Angeles, like Sepulveda, I think, and like Fremont, and that's a little farther north. Like these military people ended up getting a lot of land. I mean, the conflict of interest stuff is like extraordinary back in the time. And we talk about stuff like we're trying to get rid of National Historic Auto Tour route that switches to the 84? Yeah. Is this from old Lincoln? No, a Lincoln would be 40? I can't remember. Um, but yeah, I mean, just that moment of seeing the telegraph lines, and it's not what the funny part about the telegraph lines is. You can see there were originally like two lines of telegraphs, and then you can see how they needed more, so they had to add a second horizontal bar. The telegraph, it's right over there, right now on the left. So I see they were much shorter poles. That was power lines. So we have low power lines, and then those are high voltage up top. Those big ones. That's fine. On the right, we've got those are normal power lines. Cool on that. But on the left, you've got the telegraph poles, and the wires are literally between a lot of the telegraph poles are just cut and hanging there in between the poles, almost like piano strings hanging. Like you just took a piano string and like hung it from a pole. And it's like draping on it. There's just like I counted four on the left, four on the right, and then two on top. So I'm counting 10 lines, and that reminds me a lot of the fiber optic bundles. That was like 700 bundles in that 395 fiber from Reno to Los Angeles, one Wilshire. And it's almost never enough. You give one lane, it's not enough. Like even here on the 80, or 84, as we're climbing up, they were expanding the road to be wider for climbing for the trucks. I mean, that truck, he was like up me, trying to get me to go faster. I'm just cruising at 60 miles an hour, and he was like trying to get me to go faster. I'm like, what's the point? And then when we started to go up the hill, those were some pretty horses. That was a light tan horse. That was the black spotted, like Appaloosa or whatever. I don't remember the names. And then a brown horse is stunning. The three of them together were beautiful. I'm not really doing much photography on this trip, which is kind of a bummer. Maybe I should grab my camera. I don't know. It takes a lot of photography takes a lot of effort to stop. Look at this on the right. Some viewing area for some nature thing, I bet. Whatever's left. I mean, the 5% left of the redwoods is my favorite. The statistic will get you every time. Or like you go by Lake Isabella, and it's just like, you guys did what? But in a lot of places, they're reversing a lot of what Army Corps of Engineers did, which is kind of interesting. What's this road on the right that's running parallel to us? Is that on private property? I don't know. There's the railroads on the left. It's beautiful up here. It's really quite stunning. I kind of want music. Let's see if I can do this. Can I do this hands free? No, I'd have to type. I'd have to type the music, so I'd have to use the keyboard. I mean, look at these trucks with all the chains they've got going on. It's such an infrastructure, and you've got the idea of, like, why do you train people like train so much? I mean, from an efficiency standpoint, they make a whole lot of sense. The rolling resistance of all those tires is enormous. That was that was 16 tires just for the, no, hold on. So that's 3. 3 times 4 is 12. 12 plus 8, that's 20. So it's a 22 tire truck. I mean, the rolling resistance is enormous. That huge amount of track face, plus we have rubber creating heat for no reason from friction of the elastomers bending back and forth. Wow, look, Worthington's Canyon! Oh man, if the camera was on this side, it would be much prettier. That side's way pretty. Initially, I had a camera here going that way, but it was just like right in my face. I mean, I have an idea for doing one off of that mount, putting the camera like here, and then I can do left, and then I'll have to put another camera over there. It's fine. I have cameras. I mean, the fact that this is the $50, the quality of a $50 camera is, and I could be recording individually, and I could be recording in high speed. I mean, just like, whatever, man. It's pretty wild. Where we come from. And the interface for it's pretty good. I like it way better than the other ones. I always want to sell the other one. What's the other one I have? Yeah, I think I'll sell that one if it's, because this is like a tenth the size. Maybe an eighth or a tenth the size. I mean, I don't need 4K at this point because I'm squishing this thing down to like not even 480. It's the latitude. And then I switched on HDR. When now I had access to the settings, I updated the firmware for the cameras while we were at the park, Whoa! Wanna go climbing? That looks like some fucking crazy climbing. I don't know how you'd get from, I don't know, maybe. This is Echo Canyon. Look at that, stunning, right? Wow. There's that wagon up there. Oh, we got a bunch of signs. Alright, guys, I gotta go take some pictures of some signs. I'll be back. Oh, now we're stopped. I can get music going. I'll leave you with music. That's the, that's the, yes, that's the plan. Maybe I'll pee too? Is it pee break? Should I do elevator music for bathroom break? This is the first rest stop on live stream. I should park more legal if I'm gonna do this. If I'm gonna leave the truck, I gotta park like a normal person. What's this guy doing? Whoa! He's an electric trailbed gate. I've never seen that. That's fancy. Alright. Elevator. Elevator. Yeah, I'm gonna go pee while I'm here. No, don't search video. Music. Alright, you're getting a little crazy. All the investors are like, I need more AI! More AI! Oh, I can't film bathrooms. I was gonna like aim the camera at the bathroom. I was like, they're not allowed. Maybe I do have to go number 2? Maybe. Alright, maybe I'll feel it out. Nobody steals the car while you're gonna see whoever it is. And see the driver. This is the ultimate security camera. Can you guys watch the car? I'm at the Echo West. You guys see any? Let them know. Do I need my cell phone? No, because I'm on Starlink. Sick. Really nice restroom. No comparison to Arkansas, but I had to transfer the file. I just took pictures. Alright, so I just did some scouting. And now I've transferred them to my backpack. Yeah, I just downloaded the photos to my backpack. I gotta find where I transferred them to. Oh, here. Oh, my testicle. Oh, they don't support. The rock thing is beautiful, and especially after you read about this, it's crazy. Are you letting me do it now? It's been giving me errors on uploading the pictures. Okay, go. The ones with the text, it was like, nope, I will not. Alright. About there. Right here. This is the good levels. About there. I'm gonna make it louder. About there. Alright. himself. This the staff worker. He's been hanging out by the car over there, I guess, and they got the dog underneath in the shade, and he's got his bench over there, and she's over here hustling, man. In Arkansas, they had developmental disability people helping. Double. Tracking or double? No, I want double. No, double. Whatever. I don't need no stinking shift. I'm doing this. I had to hand this. I can't have it in its. I have a setup where I can operate this hands-free. It becomes part of the car. I mount this into the car, and then I can operate it as if it's a button, like a car. Okay. Alright, like right now, it's mounted to the car. But I'm going to not watch this. Oh. Click. Yep. I'm not touching the screen, I'm not touching the computer, I'm literally touching the button on the... It is now attached to the car. Ready? Right click. Down. Speech. Start speaking.
Echo Canyon and the Utah War. Who owns the corridor? Who controls the story? And who pays the cost? What you found in Echo Canyon is one of the strongest discoveries of the entire expedition. At Donner Pass, you saw a nation trying to defeat a physical bottleneck. At Echo Canyon, you found people preparing to turn a physical bottleneck into a political and military weapon. The same canyon carried indigenous travelers, trappers, Mormon refugees, California emigrants, stagecoaches, the Pony Express, railroad trains, automobiles, and now Interstate 80. But in 1857, it almost became the place where an American territorial militia fought the United States Army. This is not simply Utah history. It is a national case study in sovereignty, delayed information, propaganda, logistics, religious freedom, federal power, military restraint, covert intelligence, strategic deception, economic transformation, and historical memory. What the canyon itself is teaching you. The Echo Canyon panel calls this a historic corridor, but that phrase is more important than it first appears. The canyon is not merely a road through a mountain. It is a natural channel that concentrates movement. Once geography compresses travelers into one route, controlling that route creates power. The earliest trails followed land already understood by Ute and Shoshone peoples. Trappers followed those pathways. Wagon roads followed the trappers. The California, Oregon, and Mormon trails overlapped. The Pony Express then used the corridor. Stage lines and railroads followed. Interstate 80 now occupies essentially the same geographic passage. The National Park Service identifies Echo Canyon as a shared corridor of the Oregon, California, Mormon Pioneer and Pony Express National Historic Trails. Your photograph also gives an extraordinary measurement
This is
of change in
everything
time.
right here.
A
From
person
here to
walking
here.
beside a wagon could need about 2 days to travel from the Wyoming border through the area. A train in 1869 could make the distance in approximately 8 hours. A modern automobile does it in roughly 20 minutes. The land did not
300
become
foot gap.
shorter. The transportation
1,000
system
foot gap.
compressed time. That compression changed the scale at which government, commerce, migration and military power could operate. It also changed who could control the corridor. A small militia could threaten a wagon army in 1857 because the army moved slowly, required animals and depended upon an enormous supply train. A modern mechanized force would approach the same canyon under completely different conditions. But even modern infrastructure remains vulnerable at narrow points. A collapsed bridge, blocked tunnel, severed fiber line, cyber attack, landslide or wildfire can still turn a national network into a local bottleneck. Echo Canyon is therefore an old military lesson with a modern infrastructure meaning. The strength of a network is often determined not by its largest component, but by its narrowest unavoidable passage. The Utah War was partly a war over which government was real. The central conflict was not simply Mormons against America. The people of Utah were Americans. Brigham Young had been appointed territorial governor by a United States president. The Utah militia, usually called the Nauvoo Legion, was a territorial militia operating under a governor who was simultaneously the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That created overlapping authorities. The federal government claimed constitutional authority over the territory and the power to appoint its governor and judges. Brigham Young exercised civil authority as governor. He also exercised enormous religious authority over most of the population. Local institutions often treated church organization, community survival and territorial government as interconnected. Many Latter-day Saints believed that distant federal officials were repeating the persecution they had experienced in Missouri and Illinois. Federal officials increasingly believed that Utah's religious leadership had made federal law subordinate to church authority. The Utah territorial conflict therefore asked a fundamental question. What happens when a territorial population accepts the United States in principle but believes that its local religious political community has the greater moral right to determine what happens on the ground? Utah was legally a United States territory after Congress created it in 1850. But many settlers were still psychologically and institutionally building a refuge called Zion. Some had previously proposed a vast state of deseret extending across much of the interior West. The Utah War ended the possibility that this society could remain geographically isolated and practically self-governing while still receiving the benefits of territorial membership in the United States. The ownership problem began before the United States arrived. This is where your comparison to the Bear Flag Revolt becomes especially powerful. When Latter-day Saint pioneers entered the Salt Lake Valley in 1847, they were entering land still internationally recognized as part of Mexico. The United States did not acquire the region until the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848. But Mexico's legal claim did not mean that Mexico had displaced the indigenous nations living there. Ute, Shoshone, Goshute, Paiute and other peoples had their own territories, trade relationships, seasonal routes and political authority. Before Mexico, Spain claimed the wider region as part of its North American empire. Spanish expeditions produced maps and written descriptions, but Spanish physical occupation in northern Utah remained extremely limited. New Mexican traders, Ute intermediaries and later American, British and French Canadian trappers supplied much of the practical geographic knowledge that settlers eventually used. So there were several different meanings of ownership operating simultaneously. Indigenous ownership, occupation, use, kinship, travel, hunting, water and inherited territorial relationships. Imperial ownership, a distant monarch or government colors an enormous area on a map. Commercial ownership, traders and companies establish routes, posts and supply relationships. Settler ownership, a community builds houses, fences, canals and forts. Legal ownership, a court, treaty, territorial legislature or federal patent recognizes title. Military ownership, whoever can actually hold the corridor at a particular moment. Each system can declare itself legitimate while refusing to recognize the others. That is exactly what you have been discovering from Sacramento onward. Maps show clean borders. The physical landscape reveals competing systems layered over one another. The panels are valuable, but they also have a viewpoint. One of the signs you photographed says that sending the Army west resulted from falsehoods about Utah, poor communications and politics. There is considerable truth in that interpretation, but it is not the entire story. President James Buchanan's administration relied heavily upon reports from former Utah federal officials, including Judge W. W. Drummond. The administration concluded that Brigham Young's replacement would face resistance. Without conducting a sufficient investigation or formally notifying Young of the change, it canceled the Utah mail contract and ordered approximately 2,500 troops to accompany the newly appointed governor, Alfred Cumming. That was an extraordinary governmental failure. The federal government sent a major military expedition toward a population without first ensuring that the population had received a clear, authenticated explanation of the expedition's mission. Young learned that an army was approaching before receiving an adequate official account of why it was coming. Given the Latter-day Saints' history of forced removals and violence, many interpreted the expedition as another attempt to destroy or expel them. But the federal concerns were not purely invented. Former officials reported serious conflicts involving courts, territorial administration, federal law and the concentration of religious and political power. Polygamy had also become a national political issue. Buchanan's Democratic Party was under pressure after Republicans had attacked slavery and polygamy as the country's two great institutional evils. The most accurate conclusion is not that one side possessed the truth and the other side fabricated everything. It is that some reports were exaggerated. Some federal concerns were legitimate. Buchanan acted without adequate verification. Young reacted without adequate official information. Both sides carried histories that made them assume the worst. Each side's defensive preparations became evidence to the other that aggression had been intended all along. That is a classic escalation loop. One side mobilizes because it fears the other. The other sees mobilization and concludes that its fear was justified. Echo Canyon was designed as a denial system. Your bottleneck observation is exactly right. Before the modern highway widened and rearranged the landscape, portions of Echo Canyon forced wagons into something close to single file. The militia selected positions above the road where riflemen could fire downward while remaining partly protected by low stone breastworks. Entrenchments below could create crossfire and interfere with horses, wagons and soldiers. The plans shown in your photographs were extensive. Stone breastworks on cliff ledges, trenches across the canyon floor, parallel walls and earthworks, a roughly 500-foot zigzag trench, ditches intended to obstruct movement, a dam designed to back up Echo Creek, a route that could force approaching soldiers and wagons closer to the cliffs, positions from which rocks could theoretically be dropped, temporary shelters forming what was called Wickiup City. By October 1857, approximately 1,300 Utah militiamen had reportedly been stationed in the canyon. The number later rose to around 2,000. Most did not remain for the entire winter, and only a small guard stayed after the Federal Army stopped at Camp Scott near Fort Bridger. This was not a conventional battlefield design intended primarily to defeat the United States Army in a fair fight. It was a delay architecture. The objective was to make the canyon expensive, slow and frightening enough that the federal force would not enter the Salt Lake Valley before winter and diplomacy had time to operate. That makes Echo Canyon the eastern political counterpart to Donner Pass. At Donner Pass, the Central Pacific had to create enough engineering capacity to overcome granite and snow. At Echo Canyon, the militia intended to use topography, snow and logistical weakness to prevent another institution from overcoming the pass. At Donner, infrastructure defeated the bottleneck. At Echo, people attempted to weaponize the bottleneck. The real target was the Army's supply chain. The militia's most effective actions occurred east of the canyon. Lotsmith and other Utah militiamen burned federal supply trains, destroyed or removed forage, drove away government cattle and burned Fort Bridger and Fort Supply. The objective was to avoid pitched battle while depriving the expedition of time, food, shelter and transportation capacity. Utah's historical account identifies 3 burned supply trains and hundreds of government cattle driven into the Salt Lake Valley. One of your panels describes 74 wagons and their cargo being burned. That is an infrastructure attack. A 19th century army was not merely a formation of armed men. It was a moving city dependent upon thousands of animals, wagons, food, forage, firewood, ammunition, tents, replacement equipment, medical care, guides, cooks, teamsters, blacksmiths, passable roads, reliable information. The Utah militia did not need to destroy the soldiers if it could destroy the system keeping the soldiers alive. When winter struck, the federal expedition lost thousands of cattle and a large proportion of its horses. The army was forced into winter quarters near Fort Bridger rather than immediately entering the Salt Lake Valley. This is the same systems lesson you have been seeing throughout your railroad journey. The locomotive is only the visible object. The railroad's power comes from everything that keeps the locomotive operating. The same is true of an army, a city, a live stream, a hospital or a government. Latency was not a side issue. It was one of the principal causes this conflict happened before the Transcontinental Telegraph reached Utah. There was no instant confirmation from Washington. There was no secure video meeting between the president, the territorial governor and the army commander. There was no real-time map showing the expedition's position. There was no common information dashboard. Letters, newspapers, messengers and rumors moved at different speeds. Messages could be delayed, intercepted, misunderstood, selectively quoted or overtaken by events. Utah's official history argues that the confrontation probably would not have developed in the same way had transcontinental telegraphic communication existed. This gives you a direct line through your expedition. At Sacramento, the telegraph and railroad began changing the speed of continental coordination. At Donner Pass, you saw the physical work required to move bodies and cargo across the Sierra. At Promontory, the telegraph converted the last spike into an event experienced almost simultaneously across the nation. At Echo Canyon, you found what the country looked like immediately before that connectivity existed. The Utah War was partly a latency war. Washington was acting upon old and incomplete information about Utah. Utah was reacting to an army already in motion without a trustworthy explanation from Washington. The army was advancing based upon assumptions about resistance. The militia was fortifying based upon assumptions about invasion. By the time a correction could travel, thousands of men, animals and wagons were already committed. The policy had acquired physical momentum. That is a national lesson for today. A government can transmit information instantly now, but bureaucratic latency still exists. Information may sit inside an agency, remain inaccessible to another department, be classified, be ignored by leadership or arrive too late to stop a decision already funded and deployed. Faster communications do not automatically produce integrated understanding. This truly was a world of scouts, intermediaries, codes and suspected spies. The Thomas Kane story visible on your panel is extraordinary. Kane was a politically connected Pennsylvanian and longtime friend of the Latter-day Saints. He eventually received permission to travel as an unofficial intermediary. Instead of moving directly overland from Washington, he traveled through Panama and California and reached Salt Lake City in late February, 1858. Think about the route. To resolve a political and military crisis in Utah, an intermediary from the east traveled south to Panama, crossed the isthmus, reached the Pacific, traveled to California and then approached Utah from the west. The information network was so incomplete that the fastest or most reliable path between two American political centers could involve oceans and another continent's narrow crossing. Kane then traveled to the Army's winter position. Colonel Albert Sidney Johnston treated him with suspicion, and Kane was at one point arrested or detained as a suspected spy. Yet Kane persuaded Johnston to permit Governor Cumming to travel to Salt Lake City without the Army. The Utah militia then conducted what amounted to political theater. According to the panel you photographed, Kane and Cumming were taken through Echo Canyon at night. Bonfires illuminated the cliffs. Guards issued sharp challenges. Some of the same militiamen apparently moved ahead and appeared again at later checkpoints, making the defensive force seem larger than it was. That is strategic deception without digital technology. The canyon became the projection surface. Fire became lighting. Echoes amplified noise. Repeated personnel created the appearance of depth. The cliffs made a limited force seem immense. It was part military bluff, part immersive theater and part psychological operation. As a filmmaker, you found an early example of controlled staging being used for statecraft. Cumming was being shown a version of Utah's defensive capacity designed to affect his decisions. He later resented the deception, but he also entered Salt Lake City, was accepted as governor and developed a workable relationship with Young. So a performance helped make diplomacy possible, even though the performance was misleading. That is morally complicated, but historically fascinating. The Bear Flag comparison is extremely strong. The Utah War and the Bear Flag Revolt were not the same event, but they share an operating pattern. The first similarity: rumor becomes mobilization in Northern California in 1846. American settlers heard a rumor that Mexican forces were coming to expel them, burn property and drive off cattle. California State Park says that this rumor proved false, but it helped motivate approximately 30 men to seize Sonoma and arrest General Mariano Vallejo. In Utah in 1857, federal officials received reports depicting Utah as resistant to federal authority. Buchanan dispatched an army without an adequate investigation or clear advance notification. Utah leaders then interpreted the expedition as a probable invasion. In each case, uncertain information crossed a great distance and became armed action before it could be verified. The second similarity: the local population claimed defensive necessity. Bear flaggers portrayed themselves as preventing Mexican aggression. The Utah militia portrayed itself as preventing another expulsion or massacre. In both cases, the acting group described its own mobilization as defensive while the existing sovereign authority could reasonably view it as rebellion. The third similarity: local action outran formal political authority. The Bear flaggers proclaimed a California republic, but the republic lasted only 25 days before the United States Navy raised the American flag at Monterey. The local revolt was rapidly overtaken by the larger Mexican-American War and the arrival of formal United States power. In Utah, militia mobilization preceded a complete understanding of the federal government's intentions. Local leaders attempted to determine the outcome before the new governor and army could establish authority. The central difference: California in 1846 was legally part of Mexico. The Bear flaggers were American settlers rebelling against a foreign government during the opening phase of an international war. Utah in 1857 was already part of the United States. Brigham Young was a federally appointed territorial governor being replaced by another federal appointee. The Utah militia was therefore not creating an American foothold in foreign territory. It was resisting the extension of federal authority within an American territory. The Bear Flag Revolt helped replace Mexican sovereignty with United States sovereignty. The Utah War ended by confirming United States sovereignty while allowing the local religious community to survive largely intact. And both stories largely excluded the prior sovereignty of native peoples. Spanish, Mexican, Russian and Portuguese layers make ownership even stranger. California makes an excellent comparison because so many sovereignties and commercial systems overlapped there. Spain claimed all to California and eventually built missions, presidios and pueblos. Mexico inherited the province after independence. The Bear flaggers then declared a brief republic. United States naval forces raised their flag. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo formalized the transfer after the war. Meanwhile, the Russian-American Company operated Fort Ross on the northern California coast from 1812 to 1841. It was a commercial company chartered by the Russian imperial government, created partly to hunt and trade in sea otter pelts and to produce food for Russian settlements in Alaska. Its population included Russians, Alaska Native workers, local Native people and people of mixed ancestry. Was Fort Ross Russian territory? It was a Russian-chartered colonial settlement occupying land within a region claimed by Spain and then Mexico, on the homeland of the Cache Opomo. That answer changes according to whether one asks an imperial official, a company manager, a Mexican governor or the people already living there. Portugal adds another useful layer. Although Portugal did not establish a comparable territorial claim to Echo Canyon, Juan Rodrigues Cabrillo's birthplace remains disputed and has often been identified as Portuguese. Yet he sailed under Spanish authority and claimed portions of the California coast for Spain. His possible personal nationality, his employer, the flag aboard his ships and the people already occupying the coast were all different categories. That is the same distinction you are uncovering with the fur trade. A trapper could be French-Canadian, work for an American company, operate in Mexican claimed territory, trade with Ute or Shoshone communities and carry information later used by United States settlers. Peter Skene Ogden was associated with the British Hudson's Bay Company. John Henry Weber operated in an American commercial network. ADN Provost moved through Spanish and Mexican jurisdictions. New Mexican traders connected Santa Fe, Utah and California. Miles Goodyear eventually created Fort Buenaventura. These people moved through borders that looked firm on imperial maps but were thin or non-existent on the ground. The practical map was made of watersheds, passes, native relationships, trading posts, food availability and knowledge of where animals could survive. Commerce often mapped the corridor before government could administer it. The Utah War ended through political compromise, not military victory. Young eventually relinquished the governorship to Alfred Cumming. President Buchanan sent peace commissioners with an amnesty offer. Utah leaders accepted Cumming in the presence of a federal military garrison. Johnston's army marched peacefully through a largely deserted Salt Lake City on June 26, 1858. and established Camp Floyd southwest of the city. No major battle occurred in Echo Canyon. That does not mean the fortifications were pointless. Their purpose was to create delay, increase perceived cost and preserve time for diplomacy. They helped produce a winter pause during which political intermediaries could intervene. But the settlement was not a Mormon strategic victory. Federal authority was re-established. Young was replaced as governor. The army remained in Utah. The dream of complete geographic separation from non-Mormon society was effectively over. At the same time, it was not a federal military conquest of Salt Lake City. The population was not destroyed or permanently expelled. The church survived. Cumming developed a more cooperative relationship with the local community than the army expected. The outcome was an imperfect negotiated reintegration. The civilian evacuation reveals the hidden cost while military and political leaders negotiated. Approximately 30,000 people participated in the move south. Northern Utah settlements were evacuated, and residents moved toward Provo and other communities. Houses and settlements were reportedly prepared for destruction if the army attempted occupation. This is the human infrastructure that military histories often compress into one sentence. People had to move. Children, older adults, disabled residents, pregnant women, livestock, food tools, bedding, records, wagons, religious objects, seed, household property. They had to find temporary shelter in already limited communities. Farms lost labor. Militiamen were separated from families and ordinary work. Animals consumed scarce forage. Food reserves were redirected. Even without a battle, a society could be profoundly damaged by mobilization. This is the same lesson you have repeatedly identified. The cost of conflict cannot be calculated only by counting battlefield deaths. Fear, displacement, hunger, interrupted work, lost harvests, damaged health, destroyed supplies and years of distrust are also costs. Calling it a bloodless war conceals violence. The direct standoff between Johnston's army and the Utah militia produced almost no combat deaths. The National Park Service identifies one Utah militiaman killed accidentally during horseplay in Echo Canyon and one federal death from a heart attack. But the surrounding crisis was not bloodless. The siege atmosphere, war rhetoric, secrecy and fear of outsiders formed part of the context in which approximately 120 California-bound emigrants were murdered at Mountain Meadows in September 1857. John D. Lee was eventually convicted and executed for his role. Although responsibility extended beyond one man, other civilians suspected of spying or disloyalty were also killed during the crisis, including 5 members of the Aiken Party. Historians continue to examine the chain of command and degree of senior leadership involvement, but the murders demonstrate how easily emergency government can convert suspicion into extrajudicial violence. This is central to your observation about secrets and lies. When a society begins to believe that spies are everywhere, normal legal protections are too dangerous, outsiders may secretly be soldiers, dissenters may reveal defensive plans, survival depends upon obedience, and delays in information prevent verification, then accusation itself can become evidence. The person labeled a spy may have no practical way to prove otherwise. That is one of the greatest dangers of emergency power. Camp Floyd turned confrontation into an economy. The army did not disappear after the settlement. It constructed Camp Floyd, which became an enormous military and commercial center. Local residents helped build the post. Farmers and merchants supplied food, timber, animals and other material. Camp followers arrived. The combined population of Camp Floyd and nearby Fairfield reportedly reached about 7,000, making it one of the territory's largest communities. Utah State Parks describes it as the largest American military installation of its period. This creates a remarkable economic reversal. The army, originally perceived as an invasion force, became a customer. Military payroll brought hard currency. Local producers gained a large market. Freighters, merchants, hotel operators, craftspeople and laborers earned money from the institution that many residents had mobilized to resist. Jewish merchants and other non-Mormon business people also entered the territorial economy through military supply and trade, contributing to a more diverse and competitive commercial system. This pattern appears repeatedly in American history. The federal government identifies a security problem. It sends personnel and capital. A base or depot is built. The surrounding community becomes economically dependent upon the institution. The institution's original mission changes. Withdrawal then becomes an economic shock. The security system becomes a development program, even when no one originally describes it that way. Then the Civil War changed the priority stack in 1861. The national emergency shifted. Southern secession and the Civil War made the Utah confrontation secondary. Federal troops were withdrawn from Camp Floyd and reassigned. Officers who had served together in Utah later fought on opposing sides of the Civil War. Camp Floyd was abandoned. Many buildings were dismantled, and roughly $4 million in government surplus was reportedly sold for a small fraction of its value. This is an excellent example of priority switching in a national system. In 1857, Washington treated Utah as an urgent threat deserving a large share of the Army. By 1861, the continued existence of the Union itself was at stake. The Utah problem did not necessarily disappear. It was displaced by a much larger problem. Personnel moved east. Equipment was sold. Buildings were stripped. Local people purchased or salvaged materials. The temporary military city collapsed almost as rapidly as it had appeared. Federal investment became privately usable local capital. Doors, windows, tools, animals, provisions and building materials entered surrounding communities at discounted prices. Some people profited dramatically because they were positioned to buy assets produced through public expenditure. The workers who had hauled stone, cut timber, dug foundations and maintained the camp did not necessarily control the value released when the government liquidated it. This resembles what you have been observing in the railroad and mining systems. Public policy creates the opportunity. Workers create the physical asset. Contractors and merchants capture portions of the flow. Later owners inherit the increased land value. Memory names generals, governors and financiers more readily than teamsters, cooks, laundresses, diggers, carpenters and families. The Civil War did not end federal interest in the corridor after the withdrawal. The overland mail, stage and telegraph routes still required protection. In 1862, California volunteers under Colonel Patrick Edward Connor entered Utah. The federal government was concerned with protecting communications, emigrant travel and economically important routes linking California, Nevada and the rest of the Union. This is where the conflict becomes increasingly extractive. California gold and Nevada silver helped support the Union economy. Telegraph lines carried military and political information. Stage routes carried mail, officials and capital. Protecting the corridor meant protecting the movement of wealth out of the West. The military presence was therefore not only about Mormon-federal relations. It was about securing a continental logistical system during Civil War. That security came at a profound cost to Native people. Military campaigns and expanding stations occupied water sources and grazing areas, while game declined and settlers claimed productive land. Utah's official Indigenous history describes how later troops protected stage and mail operations while local Native communities were increasingly deprived of resources and then punished for raids connected to that deprivation. The corridor was being made reliable for national commerce by making Indigenous control of the corridor impossible. That is a human cost often hidden inside the phrase protecting transportation. The Russian strategic reference is another remarkable layer. Brigham Young called the evacuation and possible destruction plan the Sebastopol policy, referencing the Russian retreat and defense associated with the Crimean War. That means Utah leaders were studying recent global military history and applying it locally. The concept was that a population might abandon or destroy useful property rather than allow an approaching army to capture and benefit from it. Young's government considered evacuating northern settlements and leaving the federal force an empty or burned region. So Russia appears twice in your larger western story. In California, the Russian-American company used Fort Ross as a for trading, agricultural and imperial commercial outpost. In Utah, Russian military strategy became a model for resisting the United States Army. This is what national history actually looks like. It is not enclosed within national borders. Ideas, technologies, rumors and strategies circulate globally. What the signs leave unnamed, the plaques understandably focus on presidents, governors, colonels and militia leaders. But thousands of unnamed people made every system visible in your photographs possible. Someone moved every stone in those breastworks. Someone dug every ditch. Someone cut the poles and gathered the willow and grass for Wickiup City. Someone cooked for approximately 2,000 men. Someone maintained the horses. Someone repaired shoes, harnesses and wagons. Someone remained at home doing the labor of the absent militiamen. Someone moved children during the evacuation. Someone buried the dead livestock at the federal winter camp. Someone rebuilt abandoned farms. Someone dismantled Camp Floyd. Someone transported the salvaged doors and lumber into another town. Historical memory often assigns agency upward and labor downward. Leaders fortify a canyon. Workers lift the stones. Presidents send an army. Teamsters drag the wagons through snow. Governors move a population. Families pack their entire lives. That is the same imbalance you saw with the Chinese railroad workers. The executive's name survives in corporate and political history. The worker's body absorbs the mountain, weather, dust, danger and exhaustion. Your expedition keeps recovering the missing bird. Who actually did it? Echo Canyon completes the route you have been following. Your route now forms an extraordinary continental system sequence. Sacramento showed the river, port, capital, railroad and government converging. Folsom showed water converted into remotely usable electrical power. Colfax and Dutch Flat exposed the supply towns and human staging system behind the mountain crossing. Truckee and Donner Pass showed geology, snow, Chinese labor, tunnels and perpetual maintenance. Reno showed the interface between mountain water and Great Basin settlement. The Paiute history showed that transportation expansion entered an inhabited political landscape and generated resistance. The Keck Museum revealed the geological materials underneath national wealth. The Desert Research Institute showed science measuring the consequences of extraction and settlement. Elko showed a corridor stop becoming a regional civic center. Lithium Country showed the new extractive foundation of electric mobility. Promontory showed the ceremonial joining of the railroad and telegraph nation. Ogden showed how the ceremony became a functioning transfer hub. Echo Canyon now shows that the corridor was also contested politically and militarily before the railroad arrived. Donner Pass and Echo Canyon are bookends. Donner asks, can the nation force a transportation system through a nearly impossible physical barrier? Echo asks, who gets to use that transportation corridor? Who governs the people inside it? And can the corridor itself be used to resist the nation? Promontory joins the rails. Ogden operates the junction. Echo Canyon controls the eastern doorway. The national education lesson. This is exactly what President's School should be. A conventional school course might divide these subjects. Mormon history, Mexican-American War, Bear Flag Revolt, Native American history, fur trade, military engineering, transportation, telegraphy, Civil War, religious freedom, territorial government, logistics, infrastructure, economics, propaganda and espionage. But the canyon does not divide them. They all happened in the same physical system. The great lesson is that national leadership requires the ability to see all of them at once. A president considering military deployment must understand communication latency. A military planner must understand winter forage and animal survival. A transportation planner must understand native land and water rights. A diplomat must understand inherited trauma. An intelligence official must distinguish verified information from motivated reports. A historian must distinguish a monument's useful facts from its institutional viewpoint. An economist must trace who captures the value created by public spending. A civil rights leader must ask what happens to people labeled disloyal during an emergency. An infrastructure designer must recognize that every efficient corridor is also a potentially dangerous point of concentrated control. Closing for the live stream. What I found here is not simply the story of a war that nearly happened. It is the story of a country that could not yet communicate with itself fast enough to understand what it was doing. Washington sent an army toward Utah without completing the political conversation. Utah fortified a canyon before it knew with certainty what the army intended. Militiamen burned supply wagons to create time. Winter stopped the army. An unofficial intermediary traveled through Panama and California to carry information that could not move directly across the continent. A new governor was escorted through a canyon transformed into political theater. Bonfires, echoes and repeated checkpoints made a limited defensive force appear enormous. Diplomacy finally prevented the canyon from becoming a battlefield. Then the army built a city, poured money into the local economy and stayed until a greater national emergency pulled it away. The buildings were dismantled. The supplies were sold. The workers dispersed. The corridor remained. And then the Pony Express, telegraph, railroad, highway and interstate came through almost the same opening. That is the history I am studying on this expedition. Not merely who won. Not merely when the track was completed. But how geography becomes infrastructure. How infrastructure becomes political power. How delayed information becomes conflict. How conflict becomes an economy. And how the people who carry the heaviest physical burden are so often the least visible in the official account. The Bear Flag Revolt asked who controlled Mexican California. The Utah War asked whether a religious territorial community or the federal government controlled Utah. Underneath both questions were older indigenous nations whose ownership was rarely recognized by either side. Above both questions were distant governments trying to control landscapes they could barely communicate with. And through all of it ran the corridor. The trail became a wagon road. The wagon road became a military route. The military route became a stage and mail line. The mail line became a telegraph corridor. The corridor became a railroad. The railroad was joined at Promontory and operated through Ogden. The old passage became Interstate 80. Today, I traveled through it in a hybrid truck carrying its own electricity, shelter, computing system and satellite broadcasting equipment. The canyon has not moved. What has changed is time. What has changed is speed. What has changed is the scale of the systems passing through it. But the fundamental question has not changed. Who controls the bottleneck? And what happens to everyone else when they do?
Yeah, it's pretty wild, huh? I think there's something... I wonder if I can talk to this thing. Scrolling. Right. Micro? So, okay, so what I think is really interesting is we have a ability to send stuff. We're going to send something from one side to the other. Now, you can either send information, people, freight. Now we see different categories of people that have different there's different priorities. You have the I remember my Einstein-Nash slow balance. I see windmills. Okay. So, if you have to get something big and heavy, it's tricky. What are you going to do? Let's say the Jupiter. How are you going to get the train to the other side to send it across the railroad? You have to send that steam engine around the horn. And it depends on what the irony of making it a train in the East Coast that runs on wood that you wouldn't use on the East Coast because you have coal on the East Coast, and then sending it over here. It's like making I guess we do it all the time. We make cars for foreign export all the time for other people's qualifications and other people's regulations. All right. So with the information, you have electricity going through the telegraph. That's instant, basically. It's speed of electricity, light almost. But you need a power source. You got to use infrastructure. It takes energy. It takes resources. Basically, you're burning solar energy, battery. Okay, you need to transfer energy. You can transfer it in wood, stored sun energy, biomass. We learned that from the division, and carbon from the air and hydrogen from the water. And then, or fuel, which is still stored biomass from ancient times, which is carbon from the air and hydrogen from the water. It makes those carbohydrates and those long chains of fuel that we burn. And the irony of that, the train burns the worst bottom of the oil. That was smokiest, worst train that was awful. Okay, promontory. So you have information, then you can, before you have that, then you don't have a single chain, you have an interconnected, needs to be relayed. And in a relay, with like you have with Wi-Fi repeaters, is you have loss. So you have the Pony Express, it's to change, stop each time there's resistance stop, it's not a continuous flow across. To me, that reminds me a little bit of the information need of instant and lightweightness, as we have quantum communications. We can't necessarily have it super accurate, and we can't necessarily have it super for sending heavy mass across. Now let's talk about people. People can go at different speed. Now you have the long way around, different choices, risk, convenience and safety, the balance of getting malaria through Panama or around Mexico or whatever, and around the Horn is enormous. Bringing the Chileans up here is wild too. So people, you can first class, you can have wagon or the nice part of the train or whatever. Now we have airplane first class. Now you have the bus people. You have a hot class of that now. Cargo, you have the reefers, the refrigerator. We had the ice stuff back here. Oh, I saw the Fernley. Oh man, what was the name of the guy? Somewhere in Ogden. I saw the ice store, the big brick building, and had an ice cream shop down below, and that's fascinating. The names that continue on with power and lack of oversight. And so proud of reefers in the sense of cost and energy of refrigeration. And I guess even the ice is stored energy because the energy had to go somewhere, the lack thereof. The heat had to transfer from one side to another. Something about that. There's something cool about that. But here we are. I'm looking at a microwave repeater up above me. Cell phone repeaters are basically the same thing, and we're busy adding new telegraph lines. It looks like there were originally 2 on top, and then 2 sets of 4, and then 4, and then 8 down below telegraph lines. And this is all running parallel to the Transcontinental Railroad, parallel to the I-80. And I-80 is getting upgraded. The bridge is being replaced. And the irony in the national park system is they said anything over 50 years is considered historic. So they don't want to tear it down. There's windmills on the left, by the way, pretty big ones. These horn antennas for the microwave repeaters are fascinating. I mean, pow, pow, pow. We're on the hillside. It's stunning. The snow fences are beautiful in Wyoming. We've crossed into Wyoming, by the way. We're past Evanston. And just the history and parallels with the California. You have the Portuguese whalers. And somewhere they wanted to get all the... In Sacramento, they wanted to get them all so the other people couldn't get them all. They wanted to trap them all, to kill them all so that they couldn't get the ecological... It's wild, man. And then the idea of territories and priorities reminds me of Puerto Rico and St. Croix and Guam and stuff like that. They have the benefits of it, but then they have they're forced to live by the rules, but they don't have the full ownership. It's this in-between, nobody wins thing. And it allows for everyone to disagree about expansion and stuff. Even the idea of Greenland. Oh, and hey, Denmark was in Ogden. What was the story of the Danish guy in Denmark, in Ogden? The idea that the United States wants to buy Greenland is like, people think that's a crazy thing. It's like, what are you talking about? The United States bought like St. Croix and the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico from the Danish. And also, the Danish weren't necessarily that great to the Greenland people. I mean, they put the IUDs in the native Greenlanders not that long ago. That was like the late 60s or something, 60-something. So it's like, what we do to natives, like Americans, what we did to our natives is awful. The conversions, what we did to the Inuits, and oh man, what I've heard is the stories are just horrendous. So it's like, I'm not saying we're any better than them, but it's just like this entire conversation of, what was it? You said something really smart I liked. Rebellion versus self-defense versus a rebellion or something is a very fascinating thing, and like, that's the game of the modern conquest of humanity across wherever. I mean, you think Yosemite is the people that was given a name to the people who lived in the valley. They were called Yosemite. Some of them are killers. And because it's a good territory, you don't want them to have what you have. And people are willing to kill over food and housing. And look at modern day life. Living costs a lot. They call it the cost of living. It's not only the cost of living, it costs money to stay alive, is the truth. I mean, you talk about Santa Monica, they were talking about, where are we going to house someone for $150 a day? In the hotel I stayed at was $70, $80 a day just now, and like it's like normally it was over 100, but whatever. It's a lot of stuff. Let's see what we get out of this. I want a full report. Let's see if we can get a transcription and some observations out of this. Do as much research as you need. I gave a lot there. That's gonna take a while to process. I'll turn up the music. I keep it out of the turbo, the gas mileage is pretty good. So far on this entire trip, even all the idling that I'm doing because it's so freaking hot, I've been going 48 hours, 1,346.5 miles, 22.7 miles per gallon. I mean, so in my... I had a 22.7. That's included. That's my tons of idling. And if I go below 55, it can on off the engine. Like if I'm at, I think 50 is probably the maximum efficiency for this, because at 45, I think you're just like wasting and just running in just the time it's like on. Like if you go 1 mile an hour, yeah, your wind is in a lower distance, or you're just sitting there wasting, you're basically idling. And then it's not a full recapture and efficiency from the motor to the battery. Of course, it's horribly inefficient. It'd be cool to get a camera on the graphic of this while we're doing it. I haven't done that yet. I wish you could set the cruise control to hold the speed, but not engine brake. I either want it to hold the engine or not, because in this moment, first of all, it should know to turn the engine off. Come on. Or maybe we really drained the battery. Wow. Yeah, we cooked the battery on that last hill. Impressive. It's doing it. I mean, that's if I could control. If I could control, I wish I had a little bit more manual control of the hyper. Same thing I had with the Hyundai American, man. Especially when I was doing transcontinental trips. Because I'd wanted to charge up before the hill. Years of marriage, or 10 years of marriage, 10 years of a relationship, 4 years of marriage with my ex-wife. I mean, we drove to Fargo, at least, I want to say 8 times, maybe more. And I want to say 8. I think I flew a couple times. I say 8 times. Trying to do different ways each way. We go to Denver, we go to Salt Lake way. And the thing is on our, we'd wake up and we'd leave by, 8 or 9, a couple other be like 8 or 9, and then go till, do 10, 12-hour days. A lot. It's a lot. And, I'd want to stop and, pictures or take pictures. I mean, I'd be like, oh, let's go and take pictures again. It was, when you're with someone else, it's tricky. When you're by yourself, it's a lot easier. I mean, I have to take care of this guy. Yesterday was super hot. I had to take care of myself. It's hard, but it's good, I guess. Trying to figure out the microphone placement. this is the part of the ride that I was feeling the most like, because everything I'd done before was not, but this is now, I'm like, I was on this road with her. It would probably be like leaving early in the morning or whatever at this point. It's just like, I think it's normal. I mean, to have feelings of, at the same time, like, there's people that kind of, I think, just want to live in the system, and they might see problems, and they just either don't do anything about it, or there's no comprehension, and it gets beaten out of them. I mean, she like wrote in like high school an essay on global warming in Fargo, and it was in the newspaper. And like, so then just, I mean, I guess people get lost in what, when you're forced to, the entire system is set up so that in order to live inside of it, you have to play its game. And in order to play the game, you have to extract from the people that are, you have to extract from something. You can't, in order to do something, you have to do take it from somebody else. To go somewhere, get something, and sell it. Now, the other person could have done that. Yeah, someone could make their own nitinol mesh and whatever, but instead, you're going to have some foreign country making a nitinol mesh that's then being put into an American in America. And you're like, what are you doing? And it's like, we freaking invented the nitinol. So, and you go to the train museum and they're talking about nitinol rails. You're like, well, hell yeah, my glasses are, nitinol glasses aren't even bending it back. Yeah, I just went from my ex-wife to the trains with nitinol. You guys don't get what my brain's like. It hurts sometimes. I mean, you don't even get the half of it. You get like the amount of things I've invented and forgotten. How about my brain? I can't speak. What you're getting is the worst. My brain is so much clearer. My internal words, my internal dialogue is so much clearer. It's so good. It's amazing inside, but can't get it out. You can't see the connections that I make. I mean, you do a little bit, but like, that is a confusing sign. I mean, it's basically a map, but like, well, I don't know. You should expect me to read a map while driving on the road? just trying to do stuff that's never been done before. I'm just trying to innovate and pioneer and do things that are incredible. Guys, I mean, you're along for the ride. I had to prototype it all on the I did my all my mouth is last summer I was gonna go this live streaming, do this, but it's hard. It takes so much effort, and I wanted to focus on the rhythm and formula of what to, I don't know if I would have gotten there. Now I know the process a lot better. I mean, I'm like coming up with the curriculum and running it as a test subject myself. So it's like, I mean, I guess I'm experimental education on yourself in an age of future AI and in a world of surplus, an age of what's coming. Here we go.
The nation is a flow system. What you just described is not a loose collection of roadside observations. It is a coherent model of civilization. A nation is a system for moving information, energy, material and people through geography, under rules that decide what moves first, what gets delayed, who pays and whose losses remain invisible. Your journey is allowing you to see all four flows occupying the same corridor, from indigenous paths and for trapping routes to wagon trails, the Pony Express, telegraph wires, railroads, highways, microwave towers, cellular networks, wind turbines and satellite communications. Clean transcription of your observation. I have been thinking about transportation as a general problem of sending something from one side to another. What are we sending? We might send information. We might send energy. We might send freight. We might send people. Each category behaves differently. Information is extremely light. Once a communications path exists, an electrical or optical signal can move extraordinarily fast, but the signal still needs infrastructure. It needs energy, conductors, transmitters, receivers, repeaters, maintenance and agreed rules for encoding and decoding it. Before there was a continuous communications line across the country, information had to be relayed physically. The Pony Express moved a mail pouch from horse to horse and rider to rider. Every transfer created another point where the process could stop, fail, be delayed or be interfered with. Then the telegraph changed the relationship between information and distance. The message no longer had to move at the speed of an animal carrying paper. It could move as an electrical signal, but that did not mean the system was free or magically instantaneous. Telegraph poles had to be planted, wire manufactured, power provided, stations staffed and broken lines repaired. Now I am driving through Wyoming, looking at microwave horn antennas sending signals from ridge to ridge. I am looking at cellular infrastructure and what may be several generations of communications lines running beside the railroad and Interstate 80. We are still building telegraph lines. The carrier has changed. The basic problem has not. A microwave link needs a clear path over the hill. A cellular network needs towers and backhaul. Fiber needs a physical route. Satellites need ground stations, electricity and a view of the sky. Information may be light, but its infrastructure is heavy. Then there is energy. Wood is stored solar energy. A tree uses sunlight, carbon dioxide and water to construct energy-rich material. When a locomotive burns the wood, it rapidly releases energy that the tree accumulated over years. Fossil fuel is also stored chemical energy, but accumulated and transformed over geological time. We extract it, transport it and release it far faster than the natural system created it. Wind is another energy flow. The enormous wind turbines I see in Wyoming intercept part of the moving atmosphere and convert that kinetic energy into electricity. But even a supposedly immaterial energy system begins with enormous physical objects. The blades, towers, generators, foundations and transformers must all be manufactured and transported. A wind turbine blade can be too long to make a highway curve or pass beneath a bridge. Therefore, the design of an energy machine is limited by the geometry of the transportation network needed to deliver it. Then there is stored coal. The old ice business in Ogden is fascinating because ice is really a method of transferring heat through time. Energy had to be removed from the water to freeze it. Later, the ice could absorb heat while melting and protect food from spoilage. A refrigerated railcar therefore carried more than fruit or meat. It carried freight plus insulation, ice or mechanical refrigeration and the energy necessary to maintain a controlled environment that changed which products could reach which markets. It also created classes of freight. Perishable goods needed faster handling, more energy and more reliable schedules. Coal, rock or timber could tolerate delay differently. Mail might be given priority because its value was high compared with its mass. An enormous wind turbine blade might have enormous future value but remain difficult to move because of its dimensions. Then there is the Jupiter. The locomotive that would operate on the Western Railroad was manufactured in New York, dismantled, sent around Cape Horn, taken to San Francisco, carried by barge to Sacramento and reassembled. That is an extraordinary infrastructure paradox. The machine that would help complete the continental transportation network first had to travel by the older global maritime network because the railroad it needed did not yet exist. It was manufactured in one ecosystem for service in another. On the East Coast, coal was widely available. In the West, wood was often the more practical locomotive fuel. It is similar to manufacturing a modern automobile for export under another country's regulations, road conditions and fuel system. Then there are people. People cannot be treated simply as interchangeable freight. They have bodies, rights, fears, illnesses, family relationships, disabilities and preferences. But transportation systems still assign people different priorities. There were emigrants walking beside wagons and passengers in rail cars. There were different railroad classes. Today there are buses, economy seats, business class and private aircraft. Money can purchase speed, comfort, privacy, reliability and reduced exposure to danger. A person traveling to California might go overland, sail around Cape Horn or cross the Isthmus of Panama and wait for another ship. Each route exchanged one combination of time, money, disease, weather, physical danger and uncertainty for another. So the true transportation question is not simply, can something get there? It is, how quickly can it get there? How much energy does it require? How many transfers occur? What risks are imposed? Who receives priority? Who can afford the safest option? What is lost on the way? Then there is political territory. Places such as Puerto Rico, Guam and the U.S. Virgin Islands exist in an intermediate relationship with the United States. They are governed within the American system but do not possess the same national representation as states. Greenland is another example of how territory cannot morally be discussed as though it were an empty object that one government could simply sell to another. Denmark's colonial abuses do not give the United States ownership. They demonstrate why the people living there must be the central decision makers. All of this returns to the cost of living. We call it the cost of living, but it is really the price charged for access to the systems necessary to remain alive: land, shelter, food, water, energy, sanitation, transportation, communications and healthcare. The country has become incredibly effective at moving information and freight, yet a person may remain unable to obtain a room, medical treatment or basic safety. That is the contradiction I am seeing while following the railroad. We learned how to connect a continent physically. We have not yet learned how to distribute access to the resulting system fairly. Full analysis 1. Your mass flow model. Your Einstein mass flow balance can be formalized as 4 accounts. Flow: what moves, main constraints, typical losses, information symbols, measurements, instructions, bandwidth, latency, noise, verification, power errors, delay, interception, misinformation, energy, electrical, chemical, thermal or mechanical capacity, conversion, storage, transmission, heat and resistance, waste heat, emissions, leakage, material, freight, machines, food, minerals, mass, volume, grade, axle load, curves, perishability, breakage, spoilage, theft, pollution, people, human beings with needs and rights, safety, affordability, time, health, accessibility, injury, disease, exclusion, displacement. Above those 4 sits a control layer. Who owns the channel? Who sets the price? What receives priority? Who may enter? Who must wait? Who pays for maintenance? Who absorbs the consequences? A useful version of your balance equation is input equals successful delivery plus storage plus delay plus physical loss plus waste plus diverted or stolen value. And total travel time is not merely motion. End-to-end time equals movement plus transfer time plus waiting plus inspection plus repair plus verification. That is why intermodality is so important. Every interchange can expand the network, but every interchange can also introduce friction. Sacramento, Ogden and the ports of Panama are nodes. Donner Pass and Echo Canyon are bottlenecks. Colfax and Truckee were support and maintenance nodes. Promontory was temporarily a transfer node. The microwave structure above you is a relay node too. The Jupiter paradox. Your Jupiter observation is exactly right. The locomotive was constructed by Schenectady Locomotive Works in New York in September 1868. It was dismantled, shipped around Cape Horn, brought to San Francisco, transferred to a barge, carried to Sacramento and reassembled there. The Continental machine had to arrive through an oceanic supply chain because the Continental line was still incomplete. That illustrates a recurring development problem. How do you deliver the machine that will build or operate the system before that system exists? To build a railroad, construction locomotives, rails and tools must reach the advancing end of track. To build a wind farm, blades and tower sections must reach a remote place before the access roads may be fully developed. To build an electrical grid, crews and equipment need fuel before the new power source is functioning. To establish a communications network, technicians must communicate before the final communications network exists. The old system bootstraps the new system. One correction strengthens your analysis. The Promontory locomotives you saw were not burning bottom of the barrel residual oil. The working replicas used the original fuel types. Jupiter burns wood and number 119 burns coal. The extraordinarily dark smoke was probably coal smoke from number 119, an intense firing condition or a combination of smoke and steam. That does not weaken your pollution point. It makes it more precise. Early steam transportation externalized soot, ash, sparks, carbon emissions, fuel cutting, mining injuries and respiratory exposure in exchange for unprecedented mobility. 3. Information is light, but communications are heavy. Information has one crucial advantage over freight. It can be copied. If I send you a ton of coal, I no longer possess that same ton. If I send you a message, both of us can possess the information, but the physical encoding still requires matter and energy. Telegraphy needed copper or iron wire, poles, insulators, batteries, switching stations, operators and repair crews. The Transcontinental Telegraph was completed in October 1861. Government messages received priority, and the federal government reserved special communications privileges for military posts and scientific institutions. In other words, the first continental network already had something resembling priority of service rules, and it was not literally instantaneous end-to-end. An early Sacramento message was transmitted at 7:40 p.m. and reached President Lincoln at 11:30 the following morning. The electrical movement along each functioning section was extremely fast. The total system still included operators, relays, queues and operational delays. This distinction is essential. Propagation speed is not system speed. A website may transmit bits near light speed through fiber and still take 10 seconds to respond because a server is overloaded. An emergency call can cross a network instantly and still wait 20 minutes for institutional action. A medical record can exist digitally and remain inaccessible to the hospital that needs it. We have reduced physical signal latency without eliminating administrative latency. That is the modern version of the Utah war problem you found in Echo Canyon 4. Relays do not always create loss, but they create exposure. Your Pony Express Wi-Fi repeater analogy is excellent. With one adjustment, a relay does not necessarily degrade the message. It can also regenerate the system. The Pony Express placed fresh horses approximately every 10 to 15 miles and generally changed riders after longer segments. The relay prevented one horse or rider from having to endure the whole journey. The mail pouch remained the continuing payload, but every handoff introduced exposure. The next horse might not be ready. A station might have been attacked or abandoned. The rider might be injured. The pouch could be stolen. Weather could close the route. The receiving person could misunderstand the instructions. Analog electrical repeaters can amplify both signal and noise. Digital systems can reconstruct a clean symbol stream and apply error correction, but each node still adds some delay. power consumption, maintenance, and another possible failure or attack point. Quantum networking makes this even more interesting. An unknown quantum state cannot simply be copied and amplified like an ordinary digital bit. Quantum repeaters therefore require more complicated methods involving entanglement and state transfer. Quantum communication also cannot send usable information faster than light. A conventional classical message is still needed to interpret the result. It transfers quantum information, not locomotives, humans, or bulk freight. So your hierarchy becomes physical relay, transfer the same object; analog relay, receive and amplify a continuously varying signal; digital relay, detect, interpret and regenerate symbols; quantum relay, preserve or transfer a delicate state without ordinary copying. Each solves distance differently. 5. The horn antennas above you, the microwave horns or dishes you are seeing, are the descendants of telegraph repeaters, but they are not quite identical to cellular repeaters. A cellular base station communicates with many nearby mobile devices. Its backhaul then carries the aggregated traffic toward the larger network, often through fiber or directional microwave. Point-to-point microwave links use narrowly aimed, line-of-sight beams between fixed locations. The FCC notes that these links support cellular backhaul, railroad coordination, pipeline control, electric grid operations, and other critical services. Your POW over-the-hill description is functionally accurate. Encode the information. Aim it toward a known receiver. Receive it at the next ridge or tower. Send it toward the next point. Repeat until it reaches fiber, a switching center, or the destination network. A mountain that blocks the direct signal becomes the equivalent of a railroad-grade problem. The solution may be to climb to a relay point, go around the obstruction, or switch modes. Radio has topography 2.6. Why every network follows the same corridor. You are seeing telecommunication lines, railroad tracks, and I-80 occupying the same broad corridor because infrastructure exhibits path dependence. The first route is usually chosen because of manageable grades, water or river access, passes through mountains, stable ground, existing settlements, previously acquired rights of way, access for construction and maintenance. Once one system exists, the next system can reuse its knowledge and access. A railroad corridor already has surveys, maintenance roads, towns, and cleared space. Telegraph lines can follow it because railroad crews can inspect and repair them. Highways may later follow the same canyon because the difficult geographic negotiation has already occurred. Fiber, pipelines, and power transmission may then occupy nearby rights of way. This produces an infrastructure palimpsest. Indigenous route trapping, route wagon, trail, pony express, telegraph, railroad, highway, microwave, and fiber satellite connected vehicle. You are not merely following the Transcontinental Railroad anymore. You are following the preferred continental channel through successive technological eras. 7. Snow fences are invisible transportation machines. The Wyoming snow fences are a beautiful example of infrastructure that performs work without an engine. They manipulate airflow so wind-driven snow is deposited in a selected area before it reaches the highway or railroad. Instead of repeatedly fighting every drifting snowflake after it enters the transportation corridor, the system changes the conditions upstream. Whited studies and uses snow fences not only to protect transportation but also to influence where moisture accumulates in Wyoming's high desert environment. They are aerodynamic dams. A water dam redirects liquid flow. A snow fence redirects particles suspended in atmospheric flow. A railroad switch redirects rolling stock. A microwave antenna redirects electromagnetic energy. A low redirects human behavior. All are control structures inserted into a flow aid. Wind power is limited by freight geometry. The large wind turbines you see make your mass flow argument physical. The wind itself arrives without a freight train, but harvesting it requires blades, towers, nacelles, transformers, foundations, and transmission lines. Utility-scale turbines contain thousands of components, and modern blades can extend hundreds of feet. Transportation logistics now limit how large land-based turbines can become because tower sections may not fit under overpasses and blades may not negotiate existing roads, tunnels, or rail curves. This creates a recursive relationship. The energy infrastructure is limited by transportation infrastructure, while transportation increasingly depends upon energy infrastructure. Possible solutions include manufacturing blades closer to the site, dividing blades into transportable sections, creating flexible blades that bend safely during rail transport, expanding roads and bridge clearances, moving components by barge where water access exists, designing somewhat smaller machines that sacrifice some efficiency for deliverability. The best turbine in a computer model is useless if it cannot physically reach the foundation. That is your mass flow balance in practice. 9. Wood, petroleum and stored sunlight. Your energy genealogy is substantially correct. Photosynthesis uses sunlight to construct energy-rich compounds from carbon dioxide and water. Wood is therefore recently accumulated solar energy stored in chemical bonds. DOE describes plants as building carbohydrates through photosynthesis and humans as returning stored carbon to the atmosphere when burning wood and fossil fuels. Fossil fuels also originate largely from ancient biological material, later transformed by heat, pressure and geological time. One technical distinction: petroleum products are primarily hydrocarbons, not carbohydrates. Both contain carbon and hydrogen, but carbohydrates also contain substantial oxygen and have a different molecular structure. Energy can therefore move in several ways: as fuel aboard the vehicle, as electricity through a grid, as mechanical motion through shafts or belts, as compressed gas, as elevated water behind a dam, as heat in a hot material, as cooling capacity in ice, as electrochemical potential in a battery. Every conversion imposes losses and creates equipment. There is no energy transition without a materials transition. 10. Ice is a thermal battery. Your instinct about ice is excellent. Cold is not a substance being added. Refrigeration uses work to remove heat from one place and reject it somewhere else. A refrigerator makes its interior colder while warming the air around its condenser. Ice stores thermal capacity. Energy was previously removed to freeze the water. When the ice later melts, it can absorb substantial heat without immediately rising above its melting temperature. DOE treats ice as a form of thermal energy storage, a cold sink reserved for later use. So an iced refrigerator car contained the commercial cargo, a heat-absorbing reserve, insulation that slowed outside heat, air passages distributing cooling, meltwater management, a schedule for re-icing, workers and facilities at re-icing stations. The ice was effectively an expendable thermal battery. The Ogden name you were trying to remember is probably FAR. Historic records identify the Asil Far and Sons Ice and Ice Cream operation, and Ogden's current historical walking material still connects the Far business with local ice cream history. I cannot confirm the exact brick building you saw from the description alone, but the Far enterprise is almost certainly the historical connection you encountered. That also loops back to Lauren Far. One family name continues through settlement, water, roads, municipal authority, ice, food distribution and modern commercial memory. The name survives because ownership and institutions preserve identity more reliably than labor systems preserve the names of individual workers. 11. Refrigeration changed the geography of food. Refrigerated transportation allowed Western agricultural products to reach distant Eastern population centers. It expanded the practical market radius of fruit, vegetables, meat and dairy products. Before refrigeration, production location was strongly constrained by consumption location and season. After refrigeration, a farm could supply distant urban consumers, provided the cold chain remained intact. That phrase, cold chain, is exactly right. Every link must preserve temperature. Farm, packing house, warehouse, rail car, transfer yard and other warehouse, retailer, consumer. A single failed node can spoil the cargo even when every other part worked. The cold chain is therefore not merely transportation. It is a continuous environmental promise. And that promise has a cost. Perishable cargo receives insulation, cooling energy, monitoring and scheduling priority because its value collapses rapidly with delay. This is a kind of freight class system. 12. People move through a class system. 2. People have always faced a matrix of time, price, safety, comfort, disease, exposure, baggage, capacity, privacy, accessibility, uncertainty. Gold rush travelers could cross overland, sail around Cape Horn or travel to Panama, cross the isthmus and seek another vessel north. Cape Horn commonly required many months. Panama could shorten the route but introduced difficult transfers, tropical conditions and the risk of becoming stranded while waiting for onward passage. The transition from wagon to railroad greatly reduced average travel time, but it did not eliminate hierarchy. The affluent could buy private compartments, food, assistance and insulation from crowds. Lower fare travelers accepted less space, less privacy and often greater exposure. Today, private aircraft purchase flexibility and direct routing. First-class airline passengers purchase space and reduced queue friction. Economy passengers purchase transportation with less control. Bus passengers often accept longer travel time for a lower price. A disabled traveler may be charged not only money but planning labor, uncertainty and humiliation. The system's nominal speed is not necessarily the speed available to everyone. A train may cross the country in days while a person unable to reach the platform is effectively immobile. 13. Chileans. Portuguese migrants and transported knowledge people do not merely move their bodies. They carry techniques, languages, tools and organizational knowledge. Chilean miners were present in the California goldfields very early, and California records preserve both Chilean communities and mining devices associated with them, including Chile wheels used in ore processing. Portuguese and other Lusophone maritime workers arrived through the whaling world. Many Azorean sailors reached California on whaling vessels, left their ships during the gold rush and entered mining, fishing, agriculture and dairy production. This shows that human mobility is also technology transfer. The railroad carried machines. Migration carried skills capable of building, repairing and using the machines. 14. Take it before the rival does. The resource denial policy you were remembering was probably the Hudson's Bay Company's for desert strategy, rather than a Sacramento policy involving Portuguese whalers. Beginning in the 1820s, the Hudson's Bay Company deliberately encouraged intensive trapping south and east of the Columbia. Its objective was not only immediate for revenue but the depletion of beaver populations in areas that American trappers might otherwise find economically attractive. That is more than extraction. It is extraction as territorial denial. We may not be able to hold the territory permanently, so we will remove the resource that would attract our competitor. It resembles burning supplies before an enemy captures them, stripping machinery from a retreating factory, over-harvesting a fishery before another fleet enters, claiming minerals before political control changes, buying strategic land around a port or transportation corridor. The ecosystem becomes a weapon in a sovereignty contest. This also explains why Peter Skene Ogden and John Henry Webber matter. Ogden operated for the British Hudson's Bay Company. Webber worked within the American Ashley Henry Fur system. They competed for animals, geographic knowledge and labor in territory not yet firmly administered by either national government. And the Danish connection you remembered is John Henry Webber. He was born in Altona near Hamburg when that area was under Danish rule. He later entered the American fur trade, and the Weber River and Weber County carry his name. A Danish-born man in an American company gave his name to the river. A Canadian associated with a British company gave his name to the city. Both worked in indigenous territory claimed at different times by distant empires. That is your entire ownership problem compressed into 2 road signs. 15. Territories as political intermodal zones. Your comparison to Puerto Rico, Guam and the U.S. Virgin Islands identifies a real democratic tension. Although the historical acquisitions differ, Puerto Rico and Guam passed from Spanish to American control following the Spanish-American War. The islands of St. Croix, St. Thomas and St. John, the former Danish West Indies, were purchased from Denmark and transferred to the United States in 1917. Puerto Rico was not purchased from Denmark. These territories have different local legal arrangements, but none possesses the same national representation as a state. Puerto Rico elects a resident commissioner, while Guam and the U.S. Virgin Islands elect delegates. These representatives can participate in House activities but cannot cast final votes on the House floor. The territories also have no senators. That is political intermodality. They are inside one part of the system but outside another. They may receive citizenship, military protection, federal programs, market access and local self-government while remaining subject to congressional authority without equal voting power in Congress. That is why territory is not simply a geographic word. It is a category of partial political inclusion. 16. Greenland. People cannot be treated as transferable cargo. As of July 2026, the American president is still publicly arguing that Greenland should be controlled by the United States, while Greenland's and Denmark's governments state that it is not for sale. Your comparison with the Virgin Islands explains why the idea of purchasing territory does not come from nowhere. The United States has repeatedly expanded by purchase, but the modern sovereignty question is fundamentally different. Land cannot be separated morally from the political will of the people living on it. Greenland has extensive self-government while remaining within the realm of Denmark. Its future cannot legitimately be decided as a transaction solely between Washington and Copenhagen. Your reference to the IUD program is also accurate and important. Denmark formally apologized in 2025 for systematic discrimination against Greenlandic girls and women in connection with involuntary contraception. Investigations documented cases involving girls as young as 12 and procedures conducted without meaningful consent. But that abuse does not create an American right to Greenland. It creates a stronger argument for Greenlandic self-determination. Otherwise, one imperial power's mistreatment simply becomes another power's sales pitch. 17. Self-defense or rebellion depends on who controls the label. This returns directly to the Utah War and Bear Flag comparison. The same armed act can be described as self-defense by the local population, rebellion by the recognized government, liberation by the eventual victor, insurgency by the established authority, resistance by people who reject the authority's legitimacy, conquest by the people displaced in the process. Those words are not neutral descriptions. They assign legitimacy. A state says, "We are enforcing law." A local population says, "We are protecting our homes." An indigenous nation says, "Both groups are fighting over land that neither had the right to give away." The corridor you are following repeatedly became the place where these competing claims turned physical. Through forts, toll roads, supply depots, burned wagons, rail grades, military bases and property patents. 18. The 50-year preservation rule is not automatic protection. The National Park Service explanation you heard needs one qualification. 50 years is a common threshold used when evaluating whether a property may be historically significant. Reaching 50 years does not automatically make every bridge, tower or building historic, and it does not automatically prohibit demolition. Significance and physical integrity must also be evaluated. When a federally funded or federally permitted project may affect a listed or eligible historic property, Section 106 requires the agency to identify and consider those effects and consult with relevant parties. The law encourages informed preservation and mitigation. It does not absolutely require that the old object remain untouched. That creates a legitimate infrastructure tension. An old bridge contains engineering and community history. The bridge may also have obsolete clearances, load limits or safety systems. Preserving it in place may obstruct present mobility. Destroying it without documentation may erase important knowledge. Building around it may impose substantial cost. The best answer may be preservation, adaptive reuse, relocation, documentation, partial retention or carefully designed replacement. History should inform engineering, not automatically paralyze it. 19. Cost of living means monetized access to survival. Your strongest social conclusion may be this: the cost of living is the price of access to the minimum flows required to remain alive. A human life requires continuing inputs: calories, water, temperature control, air, sleep, sanitation, healthcare, physical safety, communication, shelter, enough mobility to reach the other inputs. The modern economy places ownership gates in front of most of them. A person does not pay merely for a room. They pay for permission to occupy a protected volume of land and building for a period of time. Your comparison between a proposed $150 per day placement and a hotel room offered for $70 or $80 raises a valid audit question. Although the prices are not automatically equivalent, a supportive placement may include staff, case management, security, insurance, regulatory compliance, transportation and vacancy risk that an ordinary hotel does not provide. But those additional functions should be itemized and tested rather than used as an unexplained justification. The relevant questions are: how much reaches the person? How much pays for administration? Is the support actually delivered? Could an existing room be combined with mobile services more cheaply? Are providers being paid to manage scarcity rather than eliminate it? Does eligibility processing cost more than the accommodation? Is the system optimized around the person or around reimbursable categories? The logistics industry tracks every pallet. Social services frequently cannot clearly explain what happened to the funding intended to keep one person alive. 20. What your expedition has become from Sacramento to Wyoming. You are now following 5 parallel histories: the movement of information, oral knowledge, maps, letters, Pony Express, telegraph, telephone, radio, microwave, cellular service, fiber and Starlink. The movement of energy, human muscle, animal power, wood, coal, petroleum, hydroelectricity, batteries and wind-generated electricity, the movement of material pelts, gold, silver, timber, rails, locomotives, food, ice, military supplies, lithium and turbine components, the movement of people, indigenous seasonal travel, trappers, emigrants, miners, railroad workers, soldiers, passengers, motorists and live stream audiences, the movement of authority, tribal sovereignty, Spanish and Mexican claims, British commercial power, Mormon settlement, territorial government, federal law, corporate ownership and modern administrative regulation. They continually cross-convert. Information directs energy. Energy moves freight. Freight builds infrastructure. Infrastructure moves people. People establish governments. Governments allocate corridors. Corridors enable extraction. Extraction finances more infrastructure. Infrastructure generates new information. And the cycle begins again. Final observation: the deepest insight is that every transportation system is a priority system. It does not merely move things. It decides. Mail before ordinary speech. Government telegrams before private ones. Passenger trains before some freight. Or freight before passengers. Refrigerated cargo before non-perishable cargo. Paying customers before people without money. Military supplies before civilian needs. Profitable routes before isolated communities. New construction before maintenance. Extraction before restoration. Property ownership before physical survival. The railroad compressed continental time. The telegraph compressed informational time. Refrigeration extended biological time before spoilage. Wind turbines convert atmospheric movement into electrical capacity. Snow fences alter where winter accumulates. Microwave towers leap information across terrain. Yet the person standing beneath all of those systems may still be unable to afford the price of remaining alive. That is the national contradiction you are studying. America became extraordinarily capable of moving value across distance, while remaining deeply unequal in deciding whose value deserves to move. Your expedition is no longer only a history of the Transcontinental Railroad. It is a field investigation into the physics, economics and morality of flow, and into whether the next American infrastructure system can deliver not only freight, power and information, but dignity.
I almost booked a hotel room in August. These nightmares, these people. I'm not stupid. So the $150 thing was for the city for relocation for people to live. And it was like, you're not going to stay in Los Angeles and Santa Monica for less than $150. It's basically impossible. That I had to stay. Well, it's a long story, but like, I got a place. You're booking. How much? So I have a room tonight for $63, $62.89. So if it was $62.89 for 30, so let's say 63 times 30, that's $1,900 a month. I mean, I'd have way better be traveling around doing this than staying in an apartment. Well, first of all, I don't have to pay electricity or water or gas or insurance. I mean, I have renter's insurance, but... And anything is, all of it's not realistically insurance, all of that's not real, and warranties, and any of it's not real, because it's all a game of, oh, you're gonna sue me, I'm gonna sue you, I'll sue you, and you're like, oh, the legal fees are gonna be so much, and you're like, not real. Rule of law is not, it's not working. Alright. Next. 30 minutes more driving. Should I call my parents? See if somebody answers again. I manually muted myself here. Cool. That was awesome. I just had a great phone call with my parents. I've been worried because when you call them, they don't answer. You're like, because when I was calling them the other day, I was like, no one was answering because, well, my mom was in the freaking hospital. And my dad, so I was like, sometimes I have to call the assisted living place to check what's going on. Wow, it's getting pretty now. Sweetwater County Museum, Wilkins Peak Mountain Bike Trails. Damn, look at this. The layers. Stacked layers of time. Stacked layers of time. Stacked layers of time in the mountain as I cross through exit 89 of on the 80. I'm looking on the left. There's these layers on the rock of like deformations, but they're layers, horizontal layers. But on the higher, sometimes they flute up, and you can see the pressure. Time is the thing. You have the clock time of the train timekeepers through the accuracy of the network of how I'm getting time from my cell phone or through satellite time through atomic clocks transmitted over a period of time. GPS, time is how position is done. Back in the day, you see the surveyors with the long lenses, basically measuring at light, space, long distance, and learning about pulsars and synchronization of Moon and Artemis and things like that. Wow, this is pretty here. The Green River maybe is where I'm at. It's as I'm driving on layers of roads upon roads, or technology upon copper, upon footpaths, upon horse paths, upon wheel paths, upon rail paths, upon road paths, upon interstate paths, upon airplane paths, and runway and technology, and the fossils that I saw stacked on top of each other, the layers, and the geology going down deeper and wearing away and washing away, and natural dissolve, the speed of natural dissolve versus the speed of when you rapid dissolve through hydrological mining. I'm gonna lose Starlink in a bit. Oh no. Oh no. I don't know if we might lose all of this. Let's send it. Transmitted, but I don't know if we're going to receive this till the other side. This is the latency thing. This is the conversation. We're going through the Panama Canal. We're going on the boat. Should we just sustain? If that just wait, how did it? How the hell did it do that? How the hell did it just do that? It just buffered through all of that. Oh my god. Oh my god. It's like a shock that's gonna CD skip. It's a skip oh my shit! This variable bit rate on the Open Broadcaster software is unreal. That is amazing. That is no trickery. That is out of the box. I gotta check to see if it did that really. Holy shit. Wow! That's truly one of the most amazing moments twofold. Okay? One of the two biggest inventions that I can remember in my lifetime. I thought TiVo was better than sliced bread. I mean, in some ways, TiVo is one of the biggest inventions in my lifetime. But we can go into that another story. I think AI and Starlink are just the coolest thing ever. Unreal. Unreal. Unbelievable. Man, look at the Continental Railroad down there.
You are at I-80 exit 89 on the west side of Green River, Wyoming. The outcrops you are seeing belong to the Greater Green River Basin. From a moving vehicle I cannot identify the exact bed, but your observation is right. Those are sedimentary layers laid down largely in ancient lake, river and floodplain environments, then bent, tilted, uplifted and cut open by erosion. The Green River Formation records the Eocene lakes that once covered much of this region. The mountain is a clock. What I am seeing as I cross Wyoming is time made physical. The mountain is not one object made at one moment. It is an archive. Every horizontal band was once a surface. Mud settled, sand arrived, minerals precipitated, plants and animals lived, died and were buried. Another layer covered them, then another. The present cliff is a vertical display of former horizontal worlds, and then the layers bend upward. That bend is pressure made visible. Rock that appears permanent was compressed, lifted, folded and fractured. Later, water, ice and wind removed enough material to expose the inside of the structure. I am not merely driving past scenery. I am driving past deposited time, deformed time and eroded time. The fossils I saw were live stacked inside those layers. The deeper layers are generally older. Erosion cuts downward through the archive, while roads cut sideways through it. Interstate 80 has effectively opened a cross-section through deep time for travelers moving at 70 miles an hour. The landscape took tens of millions of years to form. The highway allows me to pass through it in minutes. That difference in speed is the central story of this expedition. There are several kinds of time operating simultaneously. There is geological time, sediment accumulating, mountains rising and rivers cutting through rock. There is biological time, trees storing sunlight, organisms becoming fossils, food spoiling and ice melting. There is human body time, fatigue, hunger, sleep, aging and the distance a person or animal can physically travel in a day. There is machine time, wheel rotations, engine cycles, train schedules and maintenance intervals. There is network time, when every station, train, phone, satellite and computer agrees that the same instant has occurred. And there is political time, how long information takes to reach a decision maker, how long a bureaucracy takes to act and whether the correction arrives before the original mistake acquires physical momentum. That connects Green River directly to Echo Canyon. During the Utah War, delayed information helped produce military escalation. Today, my phone can know its location by receiving synchronized timing signals from space. Yet government and human institutions can still behave as though messages require months to arrive. We have nearly eliminated electrical latency. We have not eliminated institutional latency. Railroads did not merely run according to time, they reorganized time before large transportation networks. Every town could use local solar time. Noon was approximately when the sun crossed the local meridian. That worked when people traveled slowly and most activity was local. It became dangerous and unmanageable when trains moved between communities whose clocks disagreed. By the 1880s, North American railroads were operating under dozens of regional times. On November 18, 1883, most railroads adopted standard railway time, replacing that patchwork with coordinated zones. The federal government later incorporated standardized time into law, so the railroad did not only compress travel time, it helped create national time. A train schedule is an agreement that distant people will coordinate their behavior around a common clock. Without that agreement, a railroad is only track and machinery. With it, thousands of independently moving objects can share one network without colliding. The railroad watch was therefore not a fashion accessory, it was safety equipment. Position is measured time. Your connection between GPS, time and position is exactly right. A GPS satellite broadcasts both where it is and when its signal was transmitted. Your receiver compares transmission time with reception time. Because radio waves travel at the speed of light, that tiny delay gives an apparent distance to the satellite. One satellite gives a range. Several satellites produce intersecting ranges. Using signals from 4 or more satellites allows the receiver to estimate three-dimensional position while also correcting the error in its own clock. So your location is not determined merely by a map. It is determined by clocks. Distance equals signal speed multiplied by elapsed time. Your phone knows where it is because a network of atomic clocks in orbit agrees closely enough about when now is. That means the modern descendant of the railroad timekeeper is not simply another wristwatch. It is the entire positioning, navigation and timing infrastructure supporting phones, aviation, financial systems, electrical grids, communications networks and military operations. Surveying evolves from angles to timed light. The surveyors you saw with long telescopic instruments were usually measuring angles, not directly measuring the travel time of light. They established a carefully measured baseline, cited distant known points and used triangulation to calculate positions. Elevation could be determined through leveling and angular measurement. Chronometers and astronomical observations also helped establish longitude and direction. Modern total stations and laser ranging instruments take your intuition one step further. They send electromagnetic energy toward a target and measure its return or phase change. The instrument converts that information into distance. So surveying evolved through a progression. Physical chains and rods measured length. Telescopes measured angles. Chronometers connected position to astronomical time. Electronic instruments measured light. GPS moved the reference points into orbit. Pulsars may eventually extend that system across the solar system. Pulsars are clocks beyond the terrestrial network. Pulsars are rapidly rotating neutron stars whose radiation can appear as extremely regular pulses. NASA's Sextant experiment demonstrated that X-ray pulsars can be treated as celestial navigation beacons. A spacecraft compares when pulses are expected with when they actually arrive. The difference helps determine its position. That is conceptually similar to GPS, but the transmitters are stars rather than human-built satellites. It does not permit faster than light communication. It provides an independent reference against which a spacecraft can compare its own motion and clock. That connects directly to Artemis. A growing lunar transportation system will need shared standards for communications, position, navigation and time. NASA's LunaNet framework is intended to provide interoperable communications and navigation services around and on the Moon. While coordinated lunar time is being developed so independent spacecraft and surface systems can operate together safely. A moon base cannot operate on vague Earth time any more than a transcontinental railroad could operate on 50 unrelated town clocks. The moon will need its own equivalent of railroad time. The stacked transportation layers. As I move through Green River, I am traveling through repeated attempts to reduce the time and risk required to cross the same land. First came indigenous footpaths based on generations of knowledge about water, weather, animals and seasonal conditions. Then trapping routes, then horse paths, then wagon tracks, then stage and mail routes, then the railroad, then graded automobile roads, then the interstate. Above the road came aviation routes. Beside it came telegraph wires, telephone lines, microwave relays, cellular towers and fiber. Above all of that came navigation and communications satellites. Each layer does not completely erase the previous one. It inherits the earlier route because the landscape still controls where movement is practical. The river identifies the valley identifies the pass attracts the trail informs the railroad survey, the railroad establishes towns and maintenance access, the highway follows the established corridor, the communications network follows the highway and railroad because technicians can reach it, the satellite then connects the moving vehicle to the entire planet. This is stacked infrastructure, but it is also stacked time compression. A person walks the corridor in weeks or months. A horse relay carries information in days. A train crosses it in hours or days. An aircraft crosses it in hours. A radio signal crosses it in milliseconds. Yet the rock underneath still changes at geological speed. Natural erosion and hydraulic mining. Your distinction between natural dissolution and accelerated hydrological mining is important. Under ordinary conditions, rain, rivers, freeze-thaw cycles and chemical weathering gradually loosen and carry material. The process may be slow at any particular moment, although floods and landslides can produce sudden change. Hydraulic mining inserts concentrated energy into that process. Water is collected, elevated or pressurized, aimed through nozzles and used to tear apart sediment and hillsides. Humans take an erosional process that might unfold over centuries or millennia and force a major portion of it to occur within days or years. That is another form of time compression. But the removed material does not disappear. The sediment moves downstream. It fills channels. It changes flood behavior. It varies habitat and farmland. It transfers the geological and economic cost from the mining site to people and ecosystems somewhere else. That is the recurring systems lesson. Speeding up one useful flow often speeds up an unwanted flow at the same time. The railroad accelerates people and freight, but also extraction and dispossession. The telegraph accelerates truthful warnings, but also rumors and military orders. Hydraulic mining accelerates access to gold, but also erosion and sediment damage. Fossil fuel releases ancient stored energy, but also ancient carbon at a rate the atmosphere did not previously experience. A technology is not fully understood until both flows are counted. And now Starlink may disappear. That possibility is part of the lesson rather than the end of it. A live satellite connection creates the feeling of continuous presence. But mountains can interrupt the path. The system becomes discontinuous again. Then the expedition temporarily returns to an older communications model. Record locally. Store the information. Carry it forward. Reconnect at the next available node. Transmit it later. That is store and forward communication. The same basic logic used by mail routes and relays, now performed with digital memory. Even future lunar and deep space systems are being designed to tolerate disruption. Store data and forward it when the next connection becomes available. So losing Starlink does not stop the thought. It only changes its relationship to the audience. The experience continues in real time for you. For everyone else, it becomes recorded time. Closing thought. The mountain contains time as matter. The fossil contains time as life. The river contains time as movement. The road contains time as reduced travel. The railroad contains time as coordination. The telegraph contains time as electrical transmission. GPS contains time as position. The pulsar contains time as a celestial rhythm. And the live stream contains time as shared experience. I am crossing a landscape built slowly enough to preserve extinct lives inside stone, while a constellation of artificial satellites tells my phone where I am by measuring billionths of a second. That may be the deepest meaning of this expedition. Every new layer of civilization is an attempt to control time, yet every layer remains dependent upon the ancient landscape beneath it.
Well, I hope you guys had a good time with me on this. We just went from Ogden to Rock Springs. How far is that? It's not very far. Well, technically I came from Logan. So let's do Logan to Rock Springs. 175 miles. Oh no, I went that long. Oh, if I'd gone that way, it would have been way shorter. I went that way. 209, so let's say 220 miles. Okay, 220 miles in a day. Well, at 22 miles a gallon, it's 10 gallons of gas at $4 a gallon. So that's $40? Wait. 10 gallons, $4. It's $40. I mean, to consider it's sometimes $140 to $160 just to take an Uber from Santa Cruz to Los Angeles. I mean, I guess it's 50 cents a mile, realistically. If you include insurance and tire wear and all that stuff. Well, I hope you had a good day. That was fun. I think we learned a bunch today. A good stream. Supply chain game. Bye guys. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Safety over convenience. Not the other way around.